Good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday, July 26th, 1800 hours. We're now convening the Board of Commissioners regular workshop meeting. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Rostick,
Present.
Vice Mayor Kerr,
Here.
Commissioner Taglerini,
Here.
Commissioner McGeehan,
Here.
Commissioner Brooks. Here. All are present.
Thank you kindly. Okay, the first thing we're going to have is public comment. That's for any items that are not on the agenda. If we could have you come forward now.
What point of order, Mayor?
Oh,
Do we need the invocation and,
no, we're at a workshop meeting.
sorry, my
That's
mistake,
okay.
sorry.
That's okay. All right, so next up we have Selah Freedom. They're going to do a presentation for us. It's very important. If you'd come up, please. Thank you for coming.
Good evening, Mayor Jim Rossick, Vice Mayor Commissioner Ray Kerr, Commissioner David Taglerini, Commissioner Eddie McGeehan, and Commissioner Anne Marie Brooks. My name is Cassie Brewer, and I am Selah Freedom's Awareness and Development Coordinator for Pinellas County here in Florida. Selah Freedom is a nonprofit organization dedicated to raising awareness and preventing human trafficking in our communities. First and foremost, I want to express my gratitude for your time and attention today. It is crucial that we as a community come together to address the issue of human sex trafficking. While our beautiful city of Madeira Beach may be known for its stunning beaches and vibrant atmosphere, we must not turn a blind eye to the darker realities that exist within our borders. Human trafficking is a heinous crime that preys on the vulnerable and destroy lives. It can affect anyone, regardless of age, gender, or socioeconomic background. According to the Polaris Project, Florida consistently ranks among the top states in reported cases of human sex trafficking. In fact, Florida is number 3 in the nation, and Tampa is number 1 in the state of Florida. This alarming reality calls for immediate action. Selah Freedom is committed to raising awareness about the signs and indications of human trafficking. By equipping our community with knowledge, we increase the likelihood of early detection and intervention. We also offer comprehensive training programs for educators, law enforcement, healthcare professionals, and community members. These programs are designed to educate, empower, and equip individuals to recognize the signs of exploitation and to take the necessary steps to intervene. Furthermore, Selah Freedom provides support and restoration to survivors of human trafficking. We believe on a survivor-centered approach, which focuses on empowering individuals to reclaim their lives. Our organization offers safe housing. We have 2 assessment homes and 1 residential home. We offer immediate trauma and ongoing counseling, job training, and other supportive services. Through holistic care, survivors can heal, grow, and reclaim their lives with dignity and purpose. And this is where Selah comes in. Selah is a Hebrew word for rest, pause, and reflect. We were also founded in 2010 by 3 educational, very powerful women. As an organization dedicated to combating human traffic, Selah Freedom believes that prevention training in schools is a crucial step towards creating a safer and more secure community in Madeira Beach. By acknowledging the importance of your role as the mayor, the commissioners, in safeguarding the well-being of your constituents, human trafficking is a deplorable crime that affects communities across the globe, and sadly, it is not exempt in our own backyard. By prioritizing prevention training in schools, we can proactively equip young people with the knowledge and tools needed to stay safe, protect themselves, and ultimately prevent instances of trafficking. Do you know that over 2 million children are trafficked every year. One is one too many. Sailor Freedom has been the forefront of the fight against human and sex trafficking, working tirelessly to raise awareness, provide support to survivors, and engage in meaningful prevention efforts. As part of our mission, we have developed comprehensive prevention programs tailored specifically for schools. Our prevention training program educates students about the signs, risks, strategies to stay safe from exploitation. Through interactive sessions, we empower young people to recognize potential grooming tactics and exploitation techniques that traffickers may use. By instilling knowledge about their rights and personal boundaries, we aim to empower our youth to protect themselves and their peers. Furthermore, our prevention training includes bystander intervention strategies. We believe that every member of the community has a role to play in preventing trafficking and empowering young people to be aware of their surroundings and intervene safely when they identify potential signs of exploitation is an essential aspect of our program. In addition, our prevention training equips educators, parents, and administrations with the knowledge and resources to identify, report, and respond to potential trafficking situations. By fostering a community-wide culture of awareness and action, we can create a network of support for victims and ensure their needs are met swiftly and effectively. Mayor, by investing in prevention training for schools, we directly address the root cause of human trafficking by empowering our young people with the knowledge and skills needed to protect themselves and their peers. Through collaboration with schools, community organizations, and law enforcement agencies, we can implement a comprehensive prevention strategy that makes Madeira Beach an example for the communities to follow. I urge you to consider the implementation of Sailor Freedom's prevention training program in Madeira Beach School. By doing so, we can work together to protect our community's most valuable and ensure a safer, more secure future for all. I stand here today to urge you, Mayor Rosick, and honorable commissioners. You are leaders of this community. Your influence and commitments are invaluable to not only support Sailor Freedom and its mission, but also to prioritize the fight against human trafficking within our city. By collaboratively working together, we can implement proactive measures to prevent human trafficking, increase law enforcement efforts, and enhance victim support services. By doing so, we sound a clear message that Madeira Beach, Florida stands against human and sex trafficking, and that our city is a place of safety, compassion, and justice for all. Thank you for your time and dedication to creating a better and safer Madeira Beach. At this time, I would like to introduce you to Helda, who is our education prevention trainer. And if you have any questions, she can answer them for you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hilda. I am the prevention coordinator at Sailor Freedom. So just to be respectful of the time, I'm not sure if there's any specific questions that you all would like to answer or ask me. I know that Cassie created a packet for everyone that you should hopefully have in front of you that lists out different information that is very important, like the Florida's first state and nation to teach kinder through 12th grade trafficking prevention. That is listed in your packet, and also the prevention programming that lists out all of the different trainings that we have to offer from kindergarten to 12th grade, and then also for adults. So that is all listed out in your packet. I'm not sure exactly how much time I have left. I was trying to keep track of the clock. But is there anything specifically that you have in mind, a question that I could potentially answer for you?
No question, but just a comment. When I first met this young lady over here, she was telling me about the issue that happened in Clearwater with the sex trafficking. I couldn't believe it. 15 minutes from here, and there was a significant incident there. So it can truly happen anywhere. And I applaud your efforts.
Yes. Yes, and then there also was 8 women from Cuba that we helped our organization help our outreach team. This occurred last, I believe it was either October, November, where they were brought into, I believe it was through through Mexico? Oh, okay, it was through Mexico where they were brought in. They were being trafficked. They were able to be rescued here through our outreach team. So that was something also that we were helping and were a part of. I actually have a meeting set up on Friday with another young woman that our outreach team is helping, that is also happens to be from Cuba, that was brought over here to the United States to be trafficked. So I get to go and work with her, but then also I'm the prevention coordinator, so my main job is to go out and educate students and adults about the realities of what sex trafficking is. So unfortunately, there have been countless amount of times where we've gone into schools, and the most recent one, I was at Sugg Middle School, which is in Bradenton, which isn't too far from here. And they let me know and informed me that they actually just the week before we came in had a case of a young girl at their school who was potentially going to be trafficked because she fell into the traps or was falling into the traps of someone talking with her online, and she had already set up this date to go meet up with this person, and this person, she actually went and met up with that individual, and he was already driving her off to Orlando, but thankfully somehow the parents found out and they were able to rescue her in time. But again, like, unfortunately, we see this happen all of the time, and it's because again, we want to educate our youth and let them know, like, it can happen how you see it in the movies, and it could be a kidnapping situation. But usually most of the time, 90% of trafficking here in America starts and looks like a relationship that is being formed. It's not the typical kidnapping situation that you see in the movies or that you see in the news being portrayed. It looks a lot different. That's why we want to educate them on the signs and on what to look out for. And that's why our goal is to start as young as we can, which is why our curriculum is starting at kindergarten. And it is very age appropriate, because if I were to walk into a kindergarten classroom and tell them, hey guys, I'm here to talk about sex trafficking, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy. So we take the approach of teaching them like the building blocks of safety. Like, we steer away from the stranger danger conversation, and we inform them what a safe adult versus an unsafe adult looks like and how they act and how they make you feel. Because we feel like that's very important, because statistically speaking, someone that takes advantage of a child is not typically a stranger. It's typically someone that they know, someone that they thought they could trust, and someone that they love. So we inform them, you know, this is a safe adult, this is an unsafe adult, this is how they make you feel. Be mindful of that, pay attention to that. And if there's someone that's trying to trick you and trying to pretend to be an unsafe adult, go and talk to a safe adult about that, a real safe adult about that. So that's just a little bit about like the curriculum, like, and where we start off, because I know sometimes that's kind of one of the main questions we get. How do you educate kindergarteners on this? And that's kind of where we set like the building blocks to educate and have them and empower them to speak up for themselves and ask for help when needed.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
I had a quick question, based on your handout. The state is requiring the instruction in all grades K through 12. Or is your organization doing that, or is there other organizations that are doing that, or is it the schools independently doing it? How's that?
Typically, so we have our own curriculum that we created, but it is approved by the Board of Education, by the Florida Board of Education. So if we're asked to come in, we will happily come in and provide our curriculum for the youth. Again, from kinder to 12th grade. And we are state funded, so our curriculum is free of charge. So we do this, again, free of charge for all youth. But oh my gosh, I got lost in the question.
Yeah, just basically, it looks like it's a requirement that every school
Yes.
has to do it.
It is a requirement. And what we have found is sometimes some schools take like a typical 45-minute video and just kind of sit the students in front of that video, play it for them. And then that kind of like checks off the mark of that requirement. But when we have gone into schools that have taken that approach and then have had us come in, they express that they prefer having us come in because, especially the teachers, because the teachers are the ones that have to sit the students in front of that TV screen, hit play. And then when the questions come afterwards, they're not educated enough in this area to be able to answer those questions for the students. So they kind of are just left out there, just wondering what the answers are to their questions, as opposed to when we come in, we're able to answer any question that they have. And if we don't have the answer, then we'll look up the answer and email their teacher so that then they have that response and they're not just left wondering whatever question it is that they had.
Great, thank you.
Mayor and Commission, if I may just add, when I was in Clearwater years ago, the city of Clearwater actually received a grant and started the Clearwater Area Task Force on Human Trafficking, which I don't think is around anymore, but the city of St. Petersburg has the police department, human trafficking task force. One of the very interesting things that a lot of people are not aware of is how to take care of the victims, which is a lot of what Salah Freedom does. And it's a very, you're not thanked very much, but thank you certainly for everything that you do. A lot of people don't realize the victims are the ones that need the most amount of assistance, help, the law enforcement side, and you have dozens of agencies that are investigating and trying to obviously find the perpetrators. And it can be anywhere, as you said, it can be a house down your street where somebody may be held, or people, et cetera, going in and out of there, but very much appreciate the information. There isn't much, there should be a lot more support for the organizations that are providing everything from the housing to even providing meals to working with agencies to get the T or the U visas that are very difficult, especially if you're from another country. I mentioned those that came from Cuba. In Clearwater, we had folks that mainly from Mexico that were started as being smuggled into the US, but then ended up being human trafficking when the smugglers would tell their families, we're not letting go of usually your child because you now need to pay me another $5,000. And so it's a heinous crime. It's unfortunately it does happen. I hope that in the future, the state of Florida does what Georgia does, interestingly enough. Georgia passed a law a few years ago, I don't know if you're familiar, that requires every public, essentially every restaurant, every movie theater, every public venue has to have a notice of where to report if you suspect somebody who may be a victim of trafficking, which is, it's a requirement that they require, and I'm hoping the state of Florida would do that. But certainly kudos to your organization. If there's anything we can ever do, we're more than happy to help out and educate and help our residents so that they know, and our visitors to know the signs, what you look for. It could be somebody living in a $4 million house.
Yeah.
They're not always in the mobile home or the trailer. Could be in very nice homes as well.
If may I, just to follow up, we do have an outreach program that works with the FBI, Homeland Security, and the Tampa Bay Task Force. We work closely with Chief Holloway as well. What we do is we go in and we train with them, and we basically have a mindset switch that these are not criminals, these are victims, and the approach is different as well. So they have a trust there building to where they will actually open up and ask for help, and then hopefully and go to the court systems and prosecute the person who has been trafficking them. As far as the immigrants, the 8 women that were rescued, Selah was very instrumental on that. We immediately got them trauma therapy. They were sent back to their country. And then once we had all the legal documentation for them and everything was ready, we brought them back. And they are legally back in the United States, and Selah is working with them.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is discussion review commission meeting public comment section that we'd spoke about previously.
I believe you'll find that section on page 21. At the bottom.
Now, I believe we wanted to change the verbiage to where the persons that came up to talk didn't have to give their address.
Yeah, that was something that I brought up to a prior commission before I was on the board. Basically, this meeting is seen anywhere in the country, anywhere you have internet, anywhere in the world. So it was my suggestion that it doesn't make any sense with people trying to steal information about you. I just didn't see the requirement for someone to actually say where their exact address was. So my suggestion is that you have to state whether you're a Madeira Beach resident and what district you're in. And if you're not, state that you're not, or what, who you represent, or, why you're coming to the podium and participating in a meeting here in Madeira Beach. So this would have to be all wordsmithed, but I don't, unless someone can give me a reason that you have to give your address, I don't understand the reasoning.
Can I pipe in on that?
Yes, sir.
There is no legal reason, nor is there a legal requirement for the person to tell you their name, tell you their address, tell you where they reside. They can just come up here and speak, tell you their God, and continue on. We have no legal obligation, or they have no legal obligation to provide that information. I don't think that's necessary in your rules of procedure to address it because it's not required under the law. Just like when someone's making a public records request, they don't have to tell you who they are, what they want the document for, what they're going to use it for. All that information is irrelevant. So there's no legal requirement to do that. People do it as a matter of course, and sometimes there is a request to provide an address, but they could just tell you, I'm not going to give it to you, and then they can continue on. So there's no legal requirement to do it.
I appreciate that opinion.
Okay.
However, it's in writing. So it is requested. My suggestion is that we're not requesting it, that we're requesting that they let us know if they're a resident, what district that they're in, or, who they represent, to provide the comment. So, because in prior commissions, I know back when Mayor Black, she was very adamant, and then future mayors, up until this mayor, it was, they may have wanted to restrict you from speaking. And I believe when I brought it up as a resident, you were here and you mentioned, you don't really, he really doesn't need to do that. And the mayor right after stated, no, you will tell me your name and address. So I don't think it should be requested. And then, because who knows who's going to be in the mayor's position next time.
We can definitely change the rule with regard to that. I think it is important, though, with regard to someone representing an organization or a group, that we often, when we have these public hearings and quasi-judicial hearings, we don't want repetitive testimony. So we often ask if there is a group and it's being represented by one person, that they tell us, yeah, I represent these 10 people, this neighborhood association or whatever, and then you can avoid having duplicative testimony or evidence being presented because there are that organization or group's representative. So I think that maybe would be important to keep in there. The address stuff we obviously need to take out. That's my opinion. Yeah.
So what would be the way forward? Would we request staff or city manager or the clerk's office to wordsmith something that we can discuss
the city manager and I will go ahead and wordsmith it, but it needs to come back to you in the form of a resolution. These rules of procedure were adopted by resolution. So any changes or amendments would have to be done by resolution as well. So just one reading. It's very simple. We can do it at the next meeting, whatever the direction is of the commission as a whole, though. Yeah.
How about
My
this?
inclination is this, is that I think we should, I'd like to know, I know we can't force them, but I'd like to know if they're a resident or not. If we're going to ask their district, I know this sounds silly, but they may not really easily know. But if we had a map up here that they could look at quickly or something big, I agree. I think it'd be great to just ask them if we can ask, if they're a resident or not. That would be important to me. We can change it anytime. Their
Yeah,
name
'cause,
would be.
I mean, we can determine based on their address, if they provide their address, which district, if they happen to.
Well, we're saying we're not going to ask for their address.
For the address?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about this? Madeira Beach resident, non-resident or business owner in district?
I personally would be fine with that.
So we all understand you can ask it and they can tell you no, and then they still have the right to stand there and talk.
Absolutely.
Okay, we all understand that. Okay, all right.
Okay, yeah, public comment, and I actually should have asked for that first. Do we have public comment on this? Okay. Next item up is legal city attorney RFQ review. Do we have public comment on that? Okay, commission comment.
It was, I thought it was my understanding at our last meeting that we were going to discuss whether or not it had been out there long enough. Are we actually deciding now, or are we still?
No, we're still, yeah, there's no vote on this. We're still talking.
But only about these two submissions. Is that right?
No, I think you can discuss anything related to the item. I mean, it's an open discussion on how you would like to proceed or what you'd like to do.
Not to make it more complicated than it has to be, but I feel like the advertisement or the announcement that we were looking didn't go out in a particularly timely fashion. And it didn't seem like it was out there very long. And I wonder if we could, I would like to recommend that we send it out as soon as possible to more places. That would be what I would like to see.
So it was issued on Monday, the 19th of June. And then submittals were due Friday, July the 7th. Our process is it goes through our website. It gets posted on there, just like all other RFQs, RFPs. We also sent it through Demand Star, which is a service that many subscribe for to look at RFPs, RFQs. That's how we've handled that process here. As I stated at the last meeting, we shy away from sending it to either individuals or companies unless they request it from us. We then provide them, here's where it is, or email it directly to them, but we don't solicit anybody or any individual company or firm directly. It can be sent. I think one suggestion was to the Florida Bar. We can certainly do that. And any other, if that is the commission's direction to resend it, I guess the Florida Bar and any other agent, any professional or trade organizations regarding attorneys, we can forward or let them know that the RFQ is available. But yeah, definitely do not send it just directly individually. Typically firms know and they're searching and hunting those firms for whatever service it might be. It could be, electrical, whatever service or even goods. They're constantly going out and looking for work. I mean, or other opportunities. Not everybody is, but so that's typically how RFQs are found. But so just to explain how the process worked.
Understood. I'm not suggesting we send it to individuals or firms. And I also feel like from the time we decided as a commission to finally get this done, it seemed like there was a while before it actually happened. So at the risk of dragging it out any longer, I'd like to see it sent out to more typical places where RFQs go for legal services with the requirements that we have, that we've already talked about, board certified, et cetera, for municipalities, and give it another chance, and with more platforms, not individuals.
Has the city been contacted by any firms that were not able to get their submission in time?
I got an email from a lawyer. I'm sure you guys got it. I'd have to look for it, but I did get one from a lawyer. I was the only one.
But Commissioner, did they state that they would have submitted or were going to?
Yes, and I guess I assumed everybody got it, so I didn't, but I can look it up and find it. But again, that would not be what I'm suggesting. I'm not suggesting that we invite individuals. I don't have someone in mind. That email, the gist of the email was, this doesn't seem like it was advertised. Our service fulfills all these requirements. I would have liked to have been part of the bid. And I'm gonna have to find that. But at any rate, that's what that's from. Yeah, so my answer to that is yes, one. For whatever that's worth.
So when I look at it, when the RFQ went out, we all read it. I would hope we all read it. At that time, we saw the date it went out. We saw the date it was due back. And I really think as a commission, if we had an issue with that, we should have brought it up in a meeting. The part that I have a hard time with putting it back out is, number one, we have not even interviewed the two firms that applied. And one of the firms that applied, both firms that applied went to all of the links. They followed all of the rules. They submitted their applications. We have voted on people serving on committees. And to just say to the people or to the firms who did their paperwork, did their due diligence, got it in, oh, you're pretty much saying, yeah, you're not good enough. We're going to keep looking. And we haven't even interviewed them. So I understand people saying they wanted somebody else to apply for the job, because that is what I've heard. But no one brought this up prior to now that they thought the dates weren't long enough. I think we should interview the applicants that applied for the job.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I just wanted to make a quick comment. I'm not sure if we are fully aware of the way that Demand Star works, but when we place a bid out, and we use this, as Robin stated, for our platform to advertise bids, it is broadcasted to numerous amounts of people. So this bid in particular was broadcasted to 91 different firms. 11 of those firms downloaded this packet, but only 2 submitted. So this does show us that it was advertised to multiple different agencies, but we see that with our roadway projects as well. So I have it for Gulf Lane, and again, it was downloaded by multiple different agencies, but we only received, I think, 3 bids. So,
And the software shows you that.
yes, sir.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I have it pulled up right here in front of me. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That's all.
Thanks.
Thank you, Director Webfer. That was enlightening. My question is, did the firms that did complete the RFQ, did they fully complete all the requirements that were being asked for?
I think,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, y'all go through and rank them that way.
We have, yeah, I mean, staff,
We do it. That's what it's here.
yeah, that's for your role to hire, but we did, I mean, I quickly went through them. They submitted the information that was requested.
That was
Yeah.
requested. Everything that's been
That's been
requested is
requested.
there. Okay, that's. The reason I asked, it seemed like some of the forms were not filled out, but maybe they weren't supposed to be. I haven't gone through and reviewed and tried to analyze.
I think there's
I
an
just wanna make sure
instruction
that,
in there.
you know,
We
that-
can put it off for another meeting and get more info.
No, I mean, it's great to talk about now. I mean, it's just that it's not strictly a price proposal. It's a much more than that with an RFQ versus an RFP. I get that. I just wanted to make sure that they were both qualified as far as the paperwork's concerned to the city. So is the idea to discuss and debate each of the submissions at this point, or is this something that we're going to do in the private interviews? I would imagine they're private interviews.
Oh, no, absolutely not. It's got to be out in the open. There can be no other way. It's all about transparency.
But I thought that commissioners could individually, not two or more, but individually, we could interview. You cannot individually interview the law firm?
So the answer is that there's no legal requirement that says that you cannot do individual interviews. So if one commissioner wants to meet with Sarah or I and discuss our qualifications, you can do that legally. I've seen here in Madeira Beach, when we went through the city manager approval process, I've seen a couple of city managers go through, and I'm talking about that because that's an additional charter official. Sometimes there are individual interviews, sometimes there are group interviews, sometimes there's a list of 10 or 15 questions that are asked of both or more than one applicant or whatever. So it's just your direction as to whatever you want to do relative to this particular RFQ. There's no, but if you have two or more of you, that's a no-no. That'd be a
Right.
violation of the Sunshine Law. We can't do that, but on a single basis that you could.
Sorry, I just wasn't, does that mean we couldn't have a public interview like as part of?
Oh, no, you can
You can
absolutely have a
Oh,
public interview.
that's what we could
Absolutely.
do
Yeah.
that. Sure, yeah. I would only be in favor of that.
And I mean, there's two firms that we could have both of them present, come back and give a presentation. You can ask questions. That would be my suggestion, since there's only two, for what it's worth, but, and have them, we can schedule them for the next, either the next regular meeting, the next workshop, or a different meeting just to discuss that. That's really your decision as a commission.
I personally wouldn't have a problem with the next meeting if everyone would agree to that.
In the regular board meeting, not the workshop.
Right.
Would a vote be taken at that meeting?
Yes.
I mean, you can, but
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to. I mean,
That I would feel, personally, I would feel uncomfortable having both firms here and then interviewing them both and then having an opportunity. I'd like the opportunity to have a discussion during a workshop and then put it at the following vote. So that it would mean it would be a month from now
yeah, the August workshop.
The
or
August
a
workshop,
September
and then
meeting.
voted on the following
Okay,
regular
that
meeting.
works too.
I mean, that gives us an opportunity to have a conversation amongst the board and public, obviously.
Both applicants are here. Are you prepared to do any kind of presentation or just strictly, we're going to go with what's in writing?
That's up to you, up to you.
Well,
Because
I
we
thought
could
he-
do that now and then,
I mean, I would.
I mean,
are
if you're
you-
prepared, but I don't want to take a vote at this point. I've got more.
Well, you can't, yeah, you can't.
Well,
vote.
we can't anyway, yeah.
I mean, we didn't tell him to come prepared. I'd be.
Yeah.
Surprised if you're prepared to give a presentation. But that's just my opinion.
Well, what's been submitted is I don't know how much more you could actually present, really.
Well, personally, I didn't think we'd be questioning law firms today. I don't have any questions prepared. I would like the opportunity to have some research time to have some cogent questions to ask both firms. So I think waiting till the next board meeting, workshop to question, interview, and discuss, and then make a vote on the following regular meeting would be my recommendation or my preference.
I have one question. Am I allowed to ask one question to both firms?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Yes. You're allowed to ask just about any questions, Mr. Vice Mayor.
our biggest issue in this town, in this city, is development. Do either firms represent any developers, do their companies represent any developers in Pinellas County?
So I can answer the question. And by the way, Sarah Johnston's in the audience. She hasn't introduced herself yet, but I'll introduce you to her. She is the other applicant for this position. As for Trasteno, the law firm, we don't represent private developers. So whether it's in Pinellas County or not, we don't represent them at all.
Good evening. Sarah Johnston, Weiss, Dorda, Helfman, Cole, and Bierman. The address is 800 West De Leon Street in Tampa. Good evening. Hi, nice to meet you. I stand out in my suit, so we all know I'm an attorney. We do not represent any developers in Pinellas County. We have represented in the past other entities, including the county itself, but we don't represent any developers and we're not currently representing anybody. So we have no conflicts.
Does your firm represent developers in other counties?
We do have some developer clients in South Florida, but I have to say it's pretty difficult because we represent so many government entities. So we never represent a developer that's developing a project in our jurisdiction, where we're the city attorney or where we represent that government. So we abide by the bar rules. So we do not do that. So there are some private developers that we have represented in South Florida. There's some that we still do, but the large majority of our clients are government entities. We represent more government entities than any other firm in Florida at this point.
And can you make it back for our next meeting? You want to do this on a board meeting or next workshop?
Next
In a month?
workshop, a month from
Wednesday,
now.
August the 23rd.
Yes, no, Wednesdays are great for me. So yeah. Yes.
Good.
Everybody tends to have their meetings on Tuesdays, so Wednesdays are not a problem. So yes, absolutely.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I'm going to jump in, and I guess none of the other commissioners want to bite on it. I'm going to read you 2 emails that came into all of the commissioners today. I do not want to be interrupted. Some of it goes off track a little bit. However, I want the public to know what we as the commissioners face every day, and it may change things just a little bit. The first is from a previous commissioner, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. I've been a part of the Madeira Beach community for many years and have served as Commissioner and Vice Mayor of the city. I am concerned about what I saw at a recent commission meeting. A citizen asked commissioners if they wanted to investigate the failure of the city to enforce ordinance as it says in the lawsuit against the developers of Town Center. As I read it, it says that the city didn't get construction estimates, so permit fees couldn't be calculated correctly. The fee the city gets based on the amount of the certified construction estimate. There's also a claim that the original plan that was approved was changed without commission approval. Some people on the dais tried to place the blame on something that happened back in 2016. That was only partly true. Mr. Trask said this happened 2016 and 17 when the project was being reviewed way before all of us. At the time in 2016-17, Mr. Trask was city attorney and advised the city when the city town center development and rezoning was approved in 2017. As you may or may not know, the court ruled that the city failed to follow its ordinances and ruled against the city. The case was dismissed because the party settled the case. What the judges said was that the city failed to follow its own code in 2017. That didn't change. This is not old news, as one commissioner put it, and this is not just about 2017. If you read the lawsuit, the current one, it's plain that it deals with decisions by the city attorney and planning department for the last 3 years, and those decisions continue to be made. Right now, proposed hotel that apparently violates the city codes and recorded agreements is advertised on the internet to be built on the former Brown Boxer site. If you doubt it, please read the lawsuit and look at the website. During a meeting on June 28th, Mr. Trask was asked whether the city should investigate the city's part, if any, in the developer lawsuit. Mr. Trask didn't tell the commission that he already investigated the issues the day before. According to an email on June 27th, Mr. Trask met with city employees, and I don't know how accurate all of this is. I'm just reading the emails. Met with city employees, Robin Gomez, Jennifer Rowan, Frank DeSantis, and Marcy Forbes about the developer lawsuit. I believe that Mr. Trask and Mr. Gomez should have told the commission what they discovered and should be transparent with the city and the residents. I hope that the commission asks Mr. Trask to explain the results of his investigation at the next meeting. I have also made a public records request for that information. Then I found something even more disturbing. In the attached email, the city attorney, in response to a request by Jennifer Rowan, okayed that the developer can apply for almost $75,000 in impact fee waivers, impact fees that otherwise would have been paid to the city by the developer. I'm not sure why the city attorney didn't know that city ordinance require all applications for exemptions or waivers of impact fees to be made before the building permit is issued, and they cite the code here. I won't read that. All of the impact fee waivers were asked for after permit was issued, which is not allowed. One request was made almost 2 years after the permit was issued, since the waiver was granted last year. Is there a commissioner who's going to say that's old business too? And where are the checks and balances by Mr. Laughlin, the city treasurer? Is it possible for an outside attorney and an employee to waive $75,000 in impact fees for a developer without any oversight if there was any? Like I said, I'm just reading the emails. By the way, for some time, Mr. Trask and his firm have billed the city his hourly rate for travel time in the county, even though his retainer agreement states only that out-of-county travel is billable, and then only for costs, not an hourly fee. It's my understanding that a commissioner in Tarpon Springs also raised the same issue last year with Mr. Trask, and Mr. Trask's firm resigned from the Tarpon Springs shortly after. I'm not sure the commission knows that Mr. Trask and his firm are representing Mr. Hendricks, Mr. Andrews, Ms. Hodges in the Sunshine case, resulting from Mr. Trask having private interviews with commissioners at city expense, even though the city's insurance company is paying for an attorney to represent them at no cost to the city. Please ask Mr. Trask whether they will have to pay the city back for the thousands of dollars Mr. Trask's firm has been paid by the taxpayers if they lose the case. If the commission chooses to continue to pay Mr. Trask's firm to continue representation, it can still select another city attorney while Mr. Trask's firm continues to represent Hendricks, Andrews, and Hodges. Finally, I hope that all interviews for city attorney are done in public, as they always were before Mr. Trask was appointed, without a public interview. I've been where you are. It's tough up there. And I was at the losing end of a 4-1 vote a lot. In fact, I was on the losing end of the 4-1 vote when Mr. Trask was appointed interim city attorney. I included a memo to the file, which I wrote before that vote. The last thing we elected officials want to find out is that something is wrong with our city, because we are proud of it and our dedicated employees. I wrote this email hoping that it will make a difference. The residents and I will be watching. And again, this is one of 2 emails. They were sent to all of the commissioners today, but nobody's got the whatevers to read it. I do. I want the residents to know. Here's the next one. This is from a Kenneth Weiss. Don't know the name. I think he's an attorney. Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, Mr. Gomez. This email is to provide information to you regarding the request for qualification, RFQ, reply submitted by Trask Dagano LLC for the position of city attorney. Section 3.3 of the RFQ requires that any response to the city's RFQ include the following: Provide a list of judgments or lawsuits against each attorney and or firm in the last 5 years, including the nature of the lawsuit and the resolution thereof. Provide a list of all lobbyists employed by your firm and areas lobbied. Provide a list and explanation of any ethics complaints filed against each attorney and or firm or any attorney proposed under the solicitation by the Florida Bar Association or any relevant state regulatory agency within the past 5 years. The RFQ reply attached provided by Trask Dagano LLC responded to section 3.3 as follows. The firm is currently addressing complaints filed by William Gay against Thomas J. Trask and J. Dagano. The details of these complaints will be discussed privately with each commissioner should that be requested. In my opinion, the reply by Trask Dagano is neither accurate nor complete. The RFQ requires that the attorney provide 1, a list, and 2, the explanation of any Florida bar complaints filed against each attorney and or firm. There is neither a list nor an explanation. In my opinion, a private conversation out of view and not disclosed to the public does not comply with the RFQ and is not in the public interest. What is proposed by Trask Dagano LLC is similar to the facts of a pending Sunshine lawsuit in which Mr. Trask is also involved. When Mr. Trask was appointed as interim city attorney, Mr. Trask met privately with former commissioners Hendricks, Andrews, and Hodges and Price to discuss his appointment. Trask never appeared in public for an interview, and none of those former public officials said a word about any of their meetings and discussions with Mr. Trask. The case is now in the appellate court. Second, the RFQ failed to disclose that I have personally filed Florida bar complaints against Mr. Dagano on a number of issues, including some related to his actions as attorney for the city during the last 3 years. I have personal knowledge that Florida bar complaints against either or both Mr. Dagano and Mr. Trask in other municipalities, including Oldsmar, Dunedin, North Reddington Beach, and Reddington Shores. Under the rules of the Florida Bar, Mr. Trask Dagano and Trask Dagano LLC are permitted to disclose the complaints to the city and to the public. Mr. Trask seeks to represent the city as a charter officer under the terms of the RFQ. In my opinion, that Mr. Trask and Mr. Dagano should be required to comply with the requirements of the RFQ and disclose the complaints and to discuss in writing or in public the interview, the facts of those complaints regarding the city of Madeira Beach and any other complaints. One final comment. Recently, Mr. Trask announced that the city had won the schooner litigation and that it was the only case outstanding on that development. That was not correct. First, the parties, including the city, represented by Mr. Dagano, have sent a joint motion to the court advising the court that it is mistaken in its decision to dismiss the case. Instead, it was asked the court to resolve the litigation. The court entered an order temporarily vacating the dismissal, and that case is now back on the court's docket. There's also another case pending regarding the schooner that Mr. Trask did not mention, Burke versus City of Madeira Beach case, 27 numbers and a bunch of letters. Challenging the schooner development is currently pending before the court as well. I trust that Mr. Trask and Mr. Dagano will confirm the status of those cases. Respectfully, Kenneth L. Weiss. And those are 2 emails that were received by all commissioners today. I do believe the city manager. I'm putting it out there to the public. I have no comment either way at this time. I want to review the documentation further.
Mr. Mayor, I did get the first email from Mr. Douthert and enough time to prepare some questions. I thought Mr. Trask should be given the opportunity to, I'd like to hear if you have it. I have just a couple of questions. I did not get the one from Mr. Weiss in a timely fashion in order to prepare anything in questions. But if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Trask, I just want to give you an opportunity to address a couple of things. Is it true that after the 217 settlement, that the city was still found to be was not following its own code when doing the town center?
There was a court order that was issued. The court order specifically mentions that the site plan requirements were not followed. And the court, in issuing that order, made certain findings. I believe on the same day that order was withdrawn or close to that as a direct result of the settlement of the case. So it has no legal precedent in what the city is doing.
So the settlement, from my understanding, was that the construction was limited to 5 stories.
I was
And-
not involved in the settlement. The city was not involved in the settlement. That was a private matter between the developer and the plaintiff in that case.
But based on these plans that violated our own code, planning has continued for the last 3 years based on those. Is that correct?
The code has not necessarily changed in any significant way. And no, the city staff is not handling things the same way. You remember when the schooner development came before you, Jenny Rowan was very, very specific and went through every element of the code, line item by line item, to show where it existed and what the information was in response to that particular requirement. It was very, very specific.
In regards to the meeting on June 27th, that Mr. Douthert, by the way, it concerned me because Mr. Douthert was a commissioner for many years, resident for many years. So I just took this seriously. I wanted to get some answers for myself. He states that you had a meeting with Jenny Rowan, Frank DeSantis, and Marcy Forges. I'm not sure who that is. Mr. Gomez explained that he was not in attendance at that meeting.
That is correct. Mr. Douthert has some incorrect information.
But did you discuss the outcomes of that meeting with Mr. Gomez?
No, I don't believe I did.
We
Did you
did not.
discuss the outcomes with any of the commissioners?
There was no outcome of the meeting.
I mean, just the topics of the meeting, what it was talked about.
No.
And I'm not sure who Marcy Forges.
He's our
is.
community development
Community
engineer,
development.
started in May,
Got it.
City employee.
city employee.
City
Yes.
employee. With regard, now this is the one that really confuses me. With regards to the $75,000 waiver extended to Mr. Carnes, did the city follow ordinance with regards to that? Was that it seems like he requested the waiver after the fact.
I have no idea
You know,
what that is about.
I replied to all of you that we will review what that is. That'll probably take a few days, but we will review. My recollection from when I arrived last year is that the impact fees were paid, some were reimbursed. We'll have to review. I don't know that we cannot provide you an answer right now, but we will.
So once research, Mr. Chess, could you
Sure.
provide an opinion letter explaining why it was legal for us to do that?
Well, first of all, Commissioner, we're not even sure if that happened. So we're going to review it to determine exactly what happened. Not all of the information in these emails is accurate. And that's why I replied to all of you with some clarifications. I mean, and that's fine. I'm not passing any blame, but we need to be focusing on facts. A lot of this is opinion. We can provide you facts. I was not here. I have no say in what happened, but we can research and bring that back to you.
Thank you. Can you click, so can you clarify to us, I mean, from Mr. Douthart's email, former Commissioner Hodges, Andrews, and Mayor Hendricks are getting free services from Salzman, but also getting legal services from you. Is that accurate? Can you explain how that is really going or what's going on with that?
So Commissioner Price is represented by Dale Scott. He's an attorney in Orlando, the Orlando area. And my partner Jay Daño is representing some of the other defendants. And it was authorized by the city for that to occur. And that was authorized, before that work started.
So the city is paying for your services, is that right?
Not for mine, for my partners.
For your
Yeah.
Dagno of your
Jay
firm.
Daniel.
Yeah. Those are the questions I just wanted to hear your responses to. Thank you.
I have a question then in regards to Commissioner Tagliarini. Why would we be paying for a firm when we have an insurance carrier that has attorneys that's representing them already. I don't understand. Are we wasting money here? Is there some logical reason why we would do this?
We just received a request to utilize another attorney at their request, and I approve the request. The insurance were not able, either they were not able or not capable to be able to do the representation.
Okay, all right, that's. All right, then I have a couple questions then for Mr. Trask, and I'm sorry I have to ask, but it is what it is with these emails. Are there additional bar complaints as referenced in this email from a Kenneth Weiss that you didn't disclose on the RFQ?
So
Yes or no?
No, I'm not going to be interrogated by you, Mayor. It's just not going to happen, okay? So with regard to the RFQ, it specifically asks for ethics complaints. There are no ethics complaints filed against me or the firm by the Florida Bar. There are a couple of complaints that were filed by Mr. Weiss and Mr. Gay. Mr. Weiss represents Mr. Gay, and I specifically disclosed that. I'm not going to go through the details of those complaints because they are still pending. It's not appropriate to discuss them. And so there will be no answers to those questions in the public, no matter how you try to phrase your questions.
Well, that's kind of rude of you. You're being one of our charter officers and you answer to the mayor and commissioners. Okay, so is there more than one complaint? Yes or no? Are you going to answer that?
I'm not going to get into the details of the Florida Bar matters.
Okay, well then my vote will be because of a deceptive and misleading application. I would reject it.
So I have a comment. Number one, in our last meeting, I brought this very situation up. We went 2 weeks with no emails. And today, at the 11th hour, we start receiving emails with all of these accusations. Wonderful to have community involvement, but this is not fair. It isn't fair to any of us. It is not fair to our attorney. It is not fair to our city manager. Robin answered what he could right away and said he would get more answers. I know for a fact, many of the things in these emails we received today are not accurate. They are not, it is not accurate information. And although I do believe that residents should be heard, you can't just read an email and take that as the gospel and tell the man that we've got hired that he's, no good. That just is not acceptable. I mean, Robin has done a very good job when we receive emails that he sends those emails out and gets the questions answered and gets us back accurate information. And we're sitting here attacking both of them, not even allowing them to reply. And I did bring up in the last meeting, because we'd received an email accusing Mr. Trask, and he was not here, of giving false information. And I clarified that we only talk about cases that are settled, not open cases. We get a list. We get an update that's confidential that we can't share with anybody because it's confidential to us. So we know what's going on. I think we need to be reading our list and understanding what's really going on and not allowing this to happen. This type of email is the very type of email that I talked about in our last meeting.
And I can understand that. And I did provide a disclaimer. I don't know the accuracy of the information, but the public has a right to know.
But you
And they're
read it with
going to
great
know.
anger. You read that with great anger.
I did not.
Yes, you did.
Oh,
It's not appropriate.
okay.
Commissioner, I just want to say, I preface by saying John Douthert is a former commissioner. And while I wish, like you, they would write to us sooner, before Wednesday. I normally wouldn't bring an email that late to the board, but it came earlier in the day. And so I started by saying, I'd like to give Mr. Trask an opportunity to address these. And that's what I did. Give him the opportunity to address them because they came from what I considered a reliable source.
Well, there was more than one email read.
I
So
didn't
with all
get,
due respect.
I did not get to the
understand.
second email because it did come in. I must have come in. I work generally all mornings on Wednesdays and Tuesday nights. Must have come in after I stopped working. So anyway, that's just for clarification. I felt Mr. Trask deserved an opportunity to address them in public.
So we received the email from Mr. Douthert at 11:20. Robin responded to us all at 11:38. Ken Weiss sent us two emails, one at 11:11, one at 1:11, one at 1:58. I believe they were about the same email. He corrected something. Robin replied to it at 2:18. So to sit up here and to read a resident's email with such vigor and voice and not even acknowledge what our city manager, he does run our city. He runs the day-to-days. We don't. He runs this city. And to not even acknowledge or respect his response, that's to me disrespectful.
I'm sorry your feelings are hurt.
My feelings are not hurt, Mayor. It's what is professional and what is not professional. And that, sir, is not professional.
I did mention that Mr. Gomez clarified that he was not present at that meeting. I acknowledge that Mr. Gomez corrected a couple of things in the meeting, in the email.
May I ask a question totally unrelated? One firm has given us an hourly rate, and then based on 6 months, 4 to 6 months, we can turn that into a monthly retainer. Trask already uses a monthly fee based on the number of hours that they have record of attending the board meetings, and the planning commission meetings, and any other meetings that are outlined. Can we get an idea of how many hours are spent doing that, so we can kind of do at least some financial comparisons?
I can provide that to you so that you know both the retainer time, the litigation time. I can absolutely do that. I would just need the time period that you would like it for. In other words, do you want it for the year ending December 31st, 2022? Do you want it for the first 6 months of this year? Just give me some time frame, and then I can.
Whichever's easier. I mean, I can't imagine that they're going to be they're going to vary that much on a
Probably
monthly,
not.
on a monthly basis.
Probably
You
not.
have a set number of meetings, typically, whether, you have one planning meeting, you have a couple of board meetings. Civil service, I don't even know if you attend that meeting or not.
Most of the time is not city meeting related. The majority of the time is dealing with day-to-day operations of the city.
Okay. That would help me a lot.
I'd be happy to do that. I'll provide it to Sarah too, so Sarah would have it.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
So then commissioners, where are we with the two applicants then? What's your pleasure there? What are we gonna do?
I thought we were going to come back at the next workshop and interview.
I'm in favor of interviewing both firms. We have information. And the city's going to provide us maybe some clarification, a couple of issues, and we have a month. And I would not feel comfortable removing either of them from the list at this time, even though I would like answers to some of the items on the email. So I would be in favor of our original plan. Next month, we come back during the workshop. We basically have a public interview with both firms, and then we vote the following Board of Commissioners meeting. And hopefully, Mr. Gomez, Mr. Trask will give us some details on the permitting issue, $75,000, just so we can have it for clarification, how that was handled. That's just my feeling.
Vice Mayor?
I agree. So we'll move, as far as I'm concerned, we'll
That
move
was the
on.
plan.
Okay. Was there any
So the-
public comment on this? Okay. All right, next up, City of Madeira Beach changing existing boundaries of election districts to equalize as nearly as possible the number of electors in each district.
I gave you, I put documents in here after we had sort of balanced them out. It wasn't a whole lot, but we had to try to even them out as much as possible to where the lines made sense. And somehow, if you brought in parts of a street, it could be too much, or we tried to keep the whole street in the district instead of half in a street. And it doesn't affect anybody sitting up here, of course, you're still in the district that you are. But gotta remember, we do have to balance them, make them equal almost as possible, equal as possible. So it's up to you. I mean, if you want us to change them again, but we have to change them, as the city attorney said in June.
Right, so it's a requirement by law. Every 5 years, you need to address it and balance it out. And it looks to me like the proposed districts, I don't have any question. Makes sense.
I think we need to figure out how to get that 3,153 people to come vote instead of just 800 or 1,200.
I said the same thing. And and voter registration changes all the time, but we have to go by the number of voters as of the last election. And in 5 years, it could change. We could get less, we could even get more. So if
Other
you
comments?
like what you see, you can bring
It looks like
back.
you've balanced it pretty closely to me.
Yeah, we did as best we could with those.
They also, yeah. My district will take some of that
Thank you.
of Anne Marie's voters.
That's at the end of that section.
Yeah.
I know. Well, not really. I'm just creeping up on 140th. It looks like. But yes, I think this is a good rounding of the districts.
Then our next step, if you're all satisfied, the city attorney will come back with a draft an ordinance for the August meeting for first reading and public hearing. And,
Sounds like a plan.
and if it gets adopted in September, we're in time to implement it for the next election. So I would be able to add it to give the new maps in our candidate packets in December.
Time for if
Was
there's
that-
other candidates
Well, I don't
to get
know.
enough, to get signatures.
If it doesn't, Trask, does it take effect? Can I use that or I'll wait to the following candidate period?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question is, okay, if this doesn't take effect until the next election, then of course, I wouldn't use these maps until the following,
That's correct.
okay,
Yeah.
so it will, we're using the same for this one, so everybody will be.
So it
using
won't
ones we
impact the
have.
next election.
And I suggest maybe you hand out the map with the qualification packet. So there's no,
Yeah, we
No
have those
question.
in there. I'll give one of each and a big one, showing all districts,
right. So
each
so-
time,
So for signatures, that's what we're,
yes.
okay. Great. Thank you, Clara.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Health insurance benefits and salary increase for commissioners.
This question is, because if you're going to change it, we have to bring it up each year. If you're going to change it, it has to be done within, 6 months of when you're sworn into office for it to take place at that election. And so you would have to decide now, or you can always decide, but if it's late, if we don't get our ordinance in time, of course, if you should pass one, it would take effect the following election, not in 24. But if you do one now and it's adopted by September, then it would take effect at the next election.
Any comments?
Mayor, just looking at a couple of things, the comparison to municipalities our size, it seems like we're somewhat comparable with our salaries. But when I look at the meeting notes from prior commissioners, former Mayor Hendrick commented that a health insurance package could attract
Right.
more younger and more qualified people. And Vice Mayor Price agreed, saying that it would bring in more interested candidates. For instance, myself, it wouldn't help me by the next election because I'm turning 65, I'll get Medicare. A lot of times this job may not attract, it's not something that would attract a person for a salary, obviously. But we might be able to get someone with more youth, more younger ideas if it offered healthcare, which we know is a major supplement, major cost for a lot of families. So I personally would be in favor of not necessarily raising the salary, but considering the next step of including some kind of healthcare benefit to attract more candidates' interest. I mean, in the last election, Commissioner Brooke and McGeehan ran unopposed. So there's not much to offer people aside from, and they have to have time to do it. Because for anyone who thinks that it's just 2 meetings a month, it's not, it's a lot more than that. I mean, if you're going to do the job right, you spend days researching, speaking, we're trying to aim, it's a lot of work, I think. But so it attracts a lot of people who maybe are retired, semi-retired, right? So let's offer this healthcare package and maybe see if we can't get more people interested in being involved in leadership in our city. That would be my feelings with regards to healthcare, not necessarily the salary, but the healthcare package.
That sounds like an excellent plan. Could we get some estimates?
We would budget at the same 20,000 for the benefits that we do for employees. So it'd be $100,000.
And that's
Gonna
assuming they take it.
Correct, yes.
Because like,
yeah, right.
even if
Yeah,
you
just
offered
a
it to me,
budget, right.
I wouldn't take it, right?
So you're going to offer somebody $20,000 in benefits and pay them $7,500 a year.
Well, the school board would say that's, they would add that together and say that's your salary, because that's what they do.
I mean, I believe that benefits are part of your salary.
Benefits
but
are part of your
that's-
salary. That's right. And
Seems like a pretty steep expense for. I'd like to see more on it, I guess. It seems like $100,000 is a lot of money. We're sitting here splitting hairs over millage.
but wait, are
We're
you
talking
suggesting that
about
we
spending
increase the
another-
salary as well?
No. What I'm saying is we just sat here and split hairs over reducing the millage over a budget. And now you're talking about, we are a small city. We have minimal income that we pay people to sit up here. I believe if you sit up here, you really want to give your time to the city because just like you said, if you're really being a commissioner or mayor or vice mayor, you're giving way more than 2 meetings a month. You're working every day on something to do with the city. And so, I mean, I think you do it as almost a labor of love to be here, but to say, let's budget $100,000 for commissioners to have health insurance.
Oh, but
I might
I
need a
disagree.
little better
That means that
explanation.
only retired people or semi-retired people are going to be interested in doing it. A person just out of college up into their 50s, when are they going to have time? They might be very interested, but they just can't spare the time. But if it was something like to entice them, oh, I could get insurance out this, well, maybe I could do a different kind of career and still do this. I think this is an attractor. Healthcare is very important.
I think it's a lot of money.
Healthcare is expensive.
I agree, but if we were talking about full-time employees, you'd have me hook, line and sinker. But when you're talking, when you're talking 7,500, 10,000 and 100,000 for benefits, I get the argument, or not the argument, but I get your point on it. But it just seems, again, we were just arguing over millage.
Yeah, but
And
this
money,
is a
so-
different reason. This is a different reason. Try and get quality representation on the dice.
And you think health insurance would get more people to run to sit up here? I think nicer
Have you spoke
residents
to a
would get
young
people to
person?
run.
Have you spoke to a younger person about healthcare costs? Oh, my goodness. They could then do a gig type of job and do this job here because this would provide their insurance.
Probably not, because they wouldn't be able to attend all the meetings.
Well, we've already had this discussion about meeting times.
I know. But I'm
So,
just saying, it's not. I'm
I
not
would
the
love to be
only vote. I'm
flexible
not
with
the
that
only
as
vote. I
well.
was just giving my opinion
Yeah,
on spending
understood.
$100,000 on health insurance.
And you may not have anybody that's gonna take it, or you may have one or two, or. Yeah, and it doesn't take effect.
Sure, it needs to be available. Yeah.
Yeah,
The 20,000 is based on the full family coverage. Perhaps you only offer the single coverage, which takes that down to 13. I think that's what you were budgeting before. you
That's what we were budgeting for the current year.
Can you offer something different to one city employee than another?
So I would not go that direction. It should be exactly what you're providing your employees.
It's definitely a lot of money, but I do agree with Commissioner Taglerini that you would have more interest.
Well, I also think the fact that when you're going to find the commissioners that want to give their passion and their love for Madeira Beach, that's why I ran. And yes, I ran unopposed. Now, I'm not going to tell you my age, but also I'm a veteran and I don't need that extra health insurance. And that's one thing that I don't think in Madeira Beach, Commissioner, you're going to get a lot of people right out of college that's going to buy a house here in Madeira Beach, you know. What entices, like I said, what enticed me to run for Commissioner of District 3 is I care about Madeira Beach. I've lived here since 2005. I've weathered the storm. I hate when people throw cigarette butts on the beach. I hate when people litter. That is my passion, and that's why I ran. And the health insurance, yes, if it was a full-time employee, I totally agree. But part-time, no, I don't agree. But that's just me.
And fortunately, you have the time because you've served your time as a veteran. You have the time to put in for this. And let's just not talk about people out of college. I said well through their 50s. They're, you know, with the economy such as it is, there's a lot more gig mentality, gig more workforce. They can make a good living, but they don't get insurance. No, I feel like that would be a nice incentive. I think that we could, so leave it 75, but 7,500, but offer that healthcare. I would love to see some younger thinkers, some open-minded thinkers in here that maybe don't that could do it if they had healthcare because otherwise they need to do something else.
Yeah, looking at the chart here, it doesn't look like any of the cities that are comparable to our size offer it. It's all of the cities with 17,000 population, There's one, Oldsmar, 14,000, they don't offer it. The next one is Tarpon at 25,000. Although Seminole's got a comment FY 24, they're budgeting some money there. But they've got 19,000 residents. Gulfport, 11,000 residents, they don't offer it. I don't think I'd be in favor of that if we're really trying to save money, but I understand your Commissioner Tagliarini's passion of trying to attract more people. It's going to be a tough nut to crack. I wouldn't be in favor of spending $100,000 right now just on that.
It's a lot of money, but it would definitely attract people. Two-thirds of the candidates that ran this past term were unopposed.
Yeah, and also there's, and the next following election, there'll be 2 seats open. You know, we'll still be here. I don't need insurance. So there's gonna be 2 seats vacant or running again, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think it's just too much money to spend when you're only gonna be,
I get that. Odds are
you know, 2
you're
seats
never
open.
going to have all 5 commissioners on the board that are going to want it or need it. What if it were an option to forego your salary, you can have health insurance?
Oh, I like that option.
And there's some cities that, well, I know of a city that they actually offer it to all their charter officers, whether or not they're contracted or not. They're considered employees. I mean, you know, as far as on a payroll. I know one city, the city attorney gets it. And it all depends on the city, what they want to do.
Well, we have a $40 million budget or more plus. We're talking about a very small percentage. And we want to get, I'd like to have debates during election period. We didn't even have any debates.
Yes, we did. The mayor and myself and Doug Andrews went over to Madeira Cove and we spoke, 3 of us, did we not?
We did.
We did. We answered questions.
I knew the mayor did. I didn't.
Yes, we did.
Oh, yeah.
The 3 of us did.
Yeah.
And
We
you
sure
were,
did.
and you were.
2 of them were
unopposed.
held
Okay.
here.
Yeah, well, I wasn't invited to that one. though.
Well, that's the only, I guess that's the one I saw. I didn't
Right.
see the other one.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
I'm open for additional discussion on this.
I'll just, reiterate. We have scheduling and we have healthcare and we have salary, which all encourage retired or semi-retired people
That live here in Madeira Beach.
that live here in Madeira Beach. Absolutely. Absolutely. What about a waiter who makes good money here that lives here? We've got some people who make a living out of that. Maybe a business owner who, a bar owner who works at night and he's got a small business. He can't come to the meetings at night because we're very inflexible with our times. And maybe he doesn't have a big enough business to get health insurance at a group rate. That would be a great opportunity for someone. I'm just saying we have, as a board, and we're probably not alone in this, we discourage younger people from being on this board.
I disagree with that. Our planning commission has younger people on it, so I totally disagree with that. I think that when the city is looking for volunteers, age is not a factor. And the planning commission meetings are all at night. And there are a few on there now that are what I would consider young. So I don't agree with you on that. I think that if you're a civic-minded person and you want to be involved, and often people don't get involved in their civic duty until they are a little bit older, when they're done raising their children, when their kids are out of school. That's me. I'm done raising my children. I have the time. I have the energy. I have the want and desire to be here and serve the city and the community. So although I understand wanting to attract young people, I think that when young people are civic minded, they find a way to volunteer and be a part of what's going on in the community. I don't think it's fair to say they don't just because we have meetings at night.
Would you argue that,
And no health insurance And a low salary.
Would you argue that small business owners don't go without health insurance because it's too expensive?
I would not. But I don't think that you can make a decision. I mean, when you look at the numbers, you look at the other municipalities that are our size. I mean, we're in line.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So I mean,
But
I
the
understand health
argument is
insurance
getting,
is an issue for many people.
Yeah.
I can't see where offering health insurance is going to get somebody to run for city commission.
I would disagree with that.
I think it's a big attractor. I would have come a lot sooner.
I would like to see one or the other offered then as a compromise.
Can we do that?
Our attorneys advised against it.
No, I didn't ask that question. The question I'm asking is, if someone is elected, can they elect to forego their salary for health insurance?
I think the answer is yes. We would just need to draft the ordinance that way, that they would have the option of either having this salary or having the same health insurance provided to them as a city employee. I've never done it before, but I'm sure that we could be crafty and figure it out.
I mean, they would still make more money than anyone else because if they took advantage of the $20,000. But if that's what you want to suggest,
To be honest, I would have opted for that when I ran.
health insurance.
I would have, at the time, that would have been a huge help to me.
But it would end once you leave the dais.
What's that?
I said it would end once you leave the
Oh,
dais.
sure,
So
it's a
once you come
2-year
out of
It's a 2-year
office,
plan.
right, and then you would apply for Cobra.
Yeah.
If you could
18
get that
months.
for
But
whatever.
so
period
would
of
your
time.
salary end when you leave the dais too, so.
Yes, I just want you to understand, you start it, you go down this path thinking you have it, and then it's gone,
Right.
and I don't know how that affects. I've never done that, so I'm not really sure how it would affect your life if you had that insurance and then lost it. So, but I think that we can draft an ordinance to that effect, if that's.
But
the
even so, with a mindset to run, if you don't have health insurance and you are civic minded anyway, it's proven that preventive medicine is better than, once you have a disease. So having health insurance would give you 2 years to make sure that you're getting that regular health benefit of preventive medicine.
Agreed.
And I think it would be a great incentive for many people, small business owners. I know many small business owners that I'm sure don't have health insurance. Because they can't afford 20 grand a year or whatever it is, because it's probably a lot more than that. Because they are a single small business.
I'd be in favor of one or the other. Okay.
So we can bring back an ordinance then at the next meeting.
To be clear, I'd prefer both, but if that's what the rest of the commission would
Yeah.
agree to, I would not oppose that.
Okay. All right. Is there any public comment on this? I mean, this is more of a city internal issue. All right, we're going to move to Tom and Kitty Stewart Park parking and landscaping. Is there any public comment on that first, now that we're into the more of the citizen issues? Do we have any public comment on that? Okay, commission comment or city manager.
Mayor and Commission, just to update, I did communicate with the property adjacent to the south of the park. And they will, with the contractor, he will be communicating with the owner of the property. But he was very certain they'd be able to collaborate on landscaping along that southern boundary line, specifically because we will need to, if we are to add, for example, palm trees similar to what was there before, then we will need to discuss with them kind of what their plan, and again, probably collaborate, maybe share some of the costs to depending on what their looking to do, but it will likely require us removing the hedges that are currently there, as well as the fence that is on our property. Public Works met with our landscape company earlier today, and so they're reviewing, different types of landscaping, adding some trees and just improving the landscaping, as we discussed previously. In terms of the bathroom building, we haven't, but one idea was to look at what options may be available. Due to the limited space, that may not necessarily be something that we can do. My question, I'm pretty sure that residents would be in favor of keeping a restroom facility there. So the only other thought was, and I haven't had that thought, was just having a conversation with the neighboring business as to whether they would entertain possibly some sort of restroom facility that could be available to the public. If there was a way to collaborate and split some of the costs, et cetera, that might be part of the solution, but we're looking at that as well. We did have a request as a result of a meeting that we had, and with the resident and the mayor was at the meeting as well. Whether we would entertain adding, and this was discussed at a prior workshop, whether we would entertain altering or changing any of the existing parking spaces in the park and converting them into resident permit parking. And the discussion was essentially 2 on each side, on the sides closest to Gulf Boulevard, whether that would something just open for a discussion. Also, Ms. Wetper is here for any, Megan, if you had any updates regarding the landscaping before we jump into the parking. Sorry to go out of order.
That's okay. Good evening again. As Robin stated, I met with the landscaper today. We did test the irrigation. It does work, but I'm going to change it around a little bit. But unfortunately, it is pretty tight over there. So what my plan is to do is on both sides of the entrance to add palm trees, and then probably just tear out and start fresh with the landscaping, add some of the agave, do kind of the thing that we've been going with everywhere else. And the back portion, I'm not sure, I'm sure you've all seen, but we do have a huge problem with sand intrusion over there. When we get a west wind or anything that's a southwest wind, east-west wind, that parking lot is totally covered with sand. So the back portion where the trailer is, those are Kunti palms. What happens there is the sand gets underneath those and it collects. So it becomes a maintenance nightmare. I'm going to take all of those out, and I'm not sure if anybody's been to the village lately, but the tree median that's in front of Delosa's, that's a new product that I'm adding down in the village. You'll see it a lot here coming soon. I'm going to flexi pave that area so it makes it perks, just it's more pervious, but it's also easier to maintain. And if we add any type of plant materials there, it's just going to get stomped on. And that's also on potable water. So that's going to cause our water to go high if we put any other plant material in there. As Robin stated, along the south side of the parking lot, we're going to wait until more talks with the developer in hopes that we can add more palm trees. But as of right now, I'm just going to leave that area there. So in the next 2 weeks, you'll probably see all the plant materials going to be out of that park. And then I'm going to have the landscaper come in, fix the irrigation, and then we'll be ready to plant. I did look into costs to wrap the bathroom trailer, because I did hear that come up. We're looking at about $7,500 for that. That bathroom trailer will not move, even though it is mobile. I think if we were to try to move it, it would fall apart. So I don't think that we want to do that. So it would be nice to try to have an actual structure there that is, that in a sense, it's a fancy porta potty, and it smells like a fancy porta potty. No matter what I try to do to it, no matter how much smelly good stuff I put in there, I've been spraying around the trailer myself almost every morning, and yet every morning it still smells like a porta potty. So we are doing everything we can do, but The bathrooms that are over at Patriot Park is actually a structure that was actually dropped in place. So Robin and I have talked about that. We're going to try to see what the cost would be to put something like that there. But that's pretty much all the updates I have.
Are your discussions with the property owner, will we, I think we might have asked this the last discussion, do we lose the sidewalk? That's.
No, I don't
that we
believe
still- we
No,
still
the
have-
goal is to keep that sidewalk. That's why we would look to share
Share
with the
landscaping
adjacent
with-
parcel,
okay.
right?
Thank you. Just FYI, I've only been to that bathroom a couple times and it smelled fine.
Well, thank you.
We have some residents, they will advise me when
Yes,
the air conditioner is not working and
and it's,
I remind them, I hear you, and we'll try to repair it. We are at the beach, the sand,
and
water.
the air conditioning does not work. It's less than a year old and it already blew out because it's not made to sit on the beach. So it's constantly getting hit with sand, which for an RV compressor, which is what it is, doesn't hold up. So I'm trying to do a warranty claim on it now, but I have a feeling they're going to tell me no. And to replace it is $1,200.
So if you put something more permanent, I would imagine the top section would be ventilated. So you
Yes,
have
we would do
natural-
open air.
Natural ventilation, so you
Correct.
wouldn't have that.
Same as every other beach bathroom, John's Pass Park,
separation.
the new Archibald restroom.
I think it's a great idea. The palms, would they be planted on the property line? Is that the kind of, would that be,
For the south side of the
or
parking,
would it be on their property or on this? Because there's not enough property on the city side to actually put the palms on the city side of the property line, is it?
Well, there may, I mean,
There may be.
there may be with
That's
the
what you're-
removal of the bushes that are there, hedges and the fence directly behind the hedges.
I know you're in design, I'm just.
well, we just don't want to do anything on that side of the property in the event that it could get damaged during
Yeah,
construction or a demo
Yeah, the structure is set to be demolished.
very soon. We
Soon
have the
if-
demo permit.
Yep.
But we're going to plant the palm trees up at the front. So one will be behind the Tom and Kitty Stewart Park sign. So that's going to be like, I'm going to do double Christmas palms that are probably going to be about 7 feet tall. They're self-pruning. We love those. They're nice. And then just a variety of different agaves.
That'll look nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, any type of structure that we would look to place, obviously, we'd have to meet whatever
FEMA code.
FEMA codes, requirements, et cetera.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Megan.
thank
And
you.
Also, so just back to the parking, if there's any, I think I included in here, once this was converted into the 14 or 15, that's not in here, 14 or 15 space parking lot, clearly the revenue has been significantly higher, almost $100,000 in fiscal 2022. It's likely to be pretty close to that this fiscal year when we finish. But the idea that was floated is whether we would lose 4 spaces or 2 on each side or 1 on each side, really what your direction may be, and convert those into resident permit parking. And they could be resident permit parking for certain hours of the day and pay the other hours, or, I mean, just some ideas.
Can't residents already park there for free? with
Yes, they can already do that. It's, again, part of the concerns that have been raised were that residents, number of residents, that it was much easier to park there before, when it wasn't as it is now. And I think a lot of the public maybe didn't know it was public parking because it was a little bit narrower. There wasn't a business next to it, well, at least for several years.
But our stickers let us park any of
Yes,
those
correct. Yeah,
spots.
you can park in any of those spaces, well, except the disabled.
I haven't heard from any of my
Yeah.
people about that issue.
And there's also resident parking across the street on 141st and Palm.
New lot.
No, not the lot. No, that's a
Okay.
private lot.
Got it.
So no residents, please do not park in that new lot across the street from the park and the business. But on 141st, on the south side and on Palm, on the west side of Palm, residents can park there with their sticker for free.
Has any, if I could ask the commissioners, is anyone from their residents that they'd like specific parking places reserved For only residents?
Yes.
You have,
Yes, and I was with the city manager. We met with one resident. It was, I think, a great idea. I would like to see maybe a trial of 2 spots.
see what happens.
If try it, see if it works. If we need more, then we can adjust the plan. But start with 2, maybe one on the Golf Boulevard side, one near the not so odoriferous Taj Mahal of a bathroom. It's quite nice. And maybe just go with 1 and 1 and see how it works. If it works, great. Do we need to expand it? Maybe. Does it not work? Okay.
I with the dedicated street parking across the street, plus any open spot being available for residents, I think we're covered. We generated $100,000 in revenue last year on that, and we're gonna throw away what, 10% of that? I know that if I'm gonna go to the beach, I can park right on 141st. I can go to Archibald Park. There's lots of places I can park. I just don't see why we want to throw away the revenue. We've been having a debate all night on budget. I don't see the value. I really don't. When the park was there, half the time, if I wanted to get a spot, couldn't get a spot anyway. Now I can get a spot across the street and it's dedicated. All you have to do is have a sticker. To me, I'm not feeling it.
I tend to agree with the man. I mean, first of all, I think we can park in any of those spaces anyway. All right, so I hadn't even heard of reserving any for residents, but if you have heard from residents, I think that would be okay to give it a trial, maybe a couple spaces. I don't think it would hurt us that much, but let's monitor it. Let's ask, because Jamal doesn't have enough to do. Let's ask the parking folks to see if it sits empty, if people are using it, if it's being utilized. I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
I'm just asking for a trial. I think we also have to look at quality of life versus income. It's 2 spots. Let's try it and see if it works, see if the people like it. I mean, most of our population is older. They're gonna want to park closer.
If
It's
that's
just an
Yeah,
idea.
I meant, I'm thankful for saying that. I meant to say quality of life. We're responsible for that too.
We are.
so perhaps try it for August, 2 months, maybe August and September.
Will this come up at a vote for the next board?
I don't believe you're not required to, but
Well, I mean, there's some
if you,
disagreement on the
Yeah.
board. At least we should know how the board feels.
I'd be curious to know who's wanting dedicated parking, because in the morning time, for the people who previously have made comments about they can't get over to watch the sunrise, the restaurant's not open. There's nobody there. So is it, people who are going for the sunset, there is plenty of parking across the street. I have not personally witnessed it full across the street. And if you're a resident, you have a sticker, you park for free. So I'd be interested to understand who needs it or who thinks they need it outside of. There are people who want it because they want Kitty Stewart Park back the way it used to be. And is that the driving thought process? I always had this available to me. I want this back. Or is it they really need a place to park?
I don't have that answer.
That would be my question.
Might, I don't know if this would matter, but you might have some confrontation when it comes to reserving spaces. And then the individuals that maybe utilize the reserved spaces get citations because the spaces aren't, being utilized properly. you might get quite a bit of confrontation from that as well. If that makes sense.
Well, I mean, we
You,
would.
you will have confrontation.
Yeah.
And it's a moneymaker.
No,
I mean, they would be completely signed the two spaces and we would, I mean, I think even likely put some paint on the parking block and possibly at the edge of the space if that was your choice.
I'm concerned we're creating a problem that we don't have.
well, they even tend to park in reserved spaces that are city parking only. I have quite a few citations.
I don't want to create
JPL.
an issue for Jamal to enforce.
I'll do it if you want to do,
I know.
anything you want to do.
Do you want it to go to a commission vote then is what you're?
Yeah, that's all. I mean, we're debating it and,
Add as well, just patrolling that particular lot, you don't have too many residents that park there, just as one would patrol and give you information. I see very little residents parking there and fighting for those particular spots. So it's a lot of people that just pay hourly. So
Exactly. I would definitely like more information on like time, daytime, nighttime, before we give up that revenue, I would like to,
I mean, you're looking at an active lot, like a heavily active lot from roughly 10:30, 11, all the way till 8:30, 9 p.m. So you're looking at a heavy used lot that's patrolled by my staff. But again,
I wonder if the mayor's getting requests for a couple private, we could do a trial run of,
That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah.
sure.
See if it works. If it doesn't, try game plan A. If game plan A doesn't work, go to B, go to C, go back to the original.
has there been enough time to get a feel for open spots there now that the parking lot across the street is operational?
Well, at that lot, $7 an hour, I think they're going to be more or less utilizing that for valet.
No, that lot's been open to the public. And it's been $7 and $8 an hour. Plus a fee and taxes that they charge you for.
Correct.
I will tell, I mean, I walk by there almost every day, drive by there as well. It has, I think, especially in the couple of the weekends that the lot's been open, alleviated a little bit of the queuing back out to Gulf Boulevard. The lot is it appears to be just as busy as it has before. I mean, one way we can pull the revenue for daily and compare. I don't think we've done that just yet, but that'll give us an idea. But it doesn't appear there's been a significant change in the lot. But the new lot on the weekend was pretty full. And I think you're getting beachgoers parking there more so than restaurant goers.
But of course, it's going to be all about access. They're going to park the closest to where they
Yes.
want to go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
our lot's going to get filled up first.
Correct.
Is what it
Yeah,
appears.
it does.
Yeah.
But it is, again, and I think theirs is a 2-hour minimum. So you're looking at, when it was 16, I mean, it's essentially about $18 to park there. So, but for just 2 hours, if it was all day, then it's easy, but it's just for 2 hours. Whereas we're at $6 or $6.90 if you pay with the app. So we can bring it back to you at the August meeting if that's your kind of the direction we can.
I'd like to discuss a little more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Think about it.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So we'll bring that back to the next meeting for discussion. Next up is fitness center public usage. Do we have any public comment first? Come on up, Jay.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Excited to bring this to the board for the 10th time since the facility was built about 9 years ago.
We didn't know that. I'm sorry.
I've only been 3 of those, but it has been discussed numerous times for different reasons. But so anyway, I put together, there is an expense sheet, estimated costs for operating of the fitness center if we were to open it to public. do want to clarify, I have a recommendation on here. It should say if the board decides, this is the recommendation that we would move forward. So I'd say decision wise, that's totally up to what you guys are interested in doing. So I mean, we do have some opportunity with it. It is built out. There is equipment in there. And there's a few software things that we would need that we already have. On the other side of it, the fitness center location not being attached to the recreation center does create a staffing challenge for us. Limited size is, I mean, if you're looking to work out in there, it's probably 6 or 7 people. I don't know what type of use we would get. And that's why we said if we were to do this, we'd do a trial period just for residents. And it would still be shared with FD city staff. And then there's additional staff responsibility to make sure that equipment, cleaning, everything else is still being obtained. We do have a cleaning contract already that would clean nightly. I'm not sure if there would be an increase in that based on more usage. That's another thing that would have to be discussed. And then we do have various, from an operating perspective, we don't know what the maintenance increase would be. We do have a quarterly maintenance plan now that is less than $1,000 a year. They come in and they make sure the machines are still running and working and everything else. The cleaning of the machines now is handled by whoever's in there using it. So now we would have to follow up on everything with that. Like I said, we do have software, staff time, I estimated about 10 hours a week, and that's walking to and from the rec center to check on the facility, we would have to do random checks and make sure that if there are people in there, they're using it properly. Additional cameras, and then, unknown repair costs. And then I did attach, Seminole and St. Pete are the two nearest that I could find information on that actually have theirs open. Both of their fitness centers are located in the rec center. So staff is already on site and able to monitor that when they need. And they are open when the city or the rec center is open. And then, so that's where those hours come in. So we do have an opportunity with this that the hours would change differently with that based on the code reader we're going to put on it. But again, it's going to have to be molded for whatever we're looking to do. And then the one biggest thing on that is as often as this is brought up, and I don't know the original source of why it was built or anything else. I hear rumors, as we all do. But I have heard that the city has invested money in the equipment. And that's why I attached the resolution from 2015 that the fire department did seek out a grant to get that equipment paid for. I don't know if there's any stipulations on the use of that equipment. I just know that that's how it was purchased at the time. So that's where it all came from. So I tried to give you all as much information as I could, put together a plan that if we were to open it, this is how we would look to operate it. It doesn't mean that that's what it would end up as. We would just, mold it and seek it out and research everything as we go. So there would be some growing pains, I'm sure. And then if that's something we were to do moving forward, we would look to put together a fee structure, knowing that it is going to be a cost to the city and something that we have to support. So, yes.
Just a couple of questions. Do we have to offer it to non-residents?
We don't have to do anything. It's just
No, I mean, I think the trial would be just for residents.
I mean, so
But
the
that's
next
okay.
question, I haven't worked out there in a while. The last thing I think you added was, the decline bench.
Mhm.
Is there any other equipment since then?
no.
So I think I made this point earlier. This is not going to attract a ton of people, this gym. It'll attract people who seriously know how to work out. Because it's not classes, it's not, there's a couple of treadmills, maybe a treadmill or
Had 2 treadmills, 2 ellipticals.
right, and it's a great view. I love the suggestion you've made here. I love the trial. My only recommendation would be take out non-residents completely. I think that limits our liability and limits our problems. And we try it out for your, whatever your trial period is, but just with residents. And I think it should just be residents. That's just.
Yeah, I agree. Residents and also
And
the,
guests of residents, sorry. I guess for your, like if you have a friend.
Well, so that's one of the challenges we have with this is if we're gonna for you to register to a gym, it's the models that we've seen. If I wanted to go to 24-hour fitness or whatever, I put my name down and then like my wife has a membership at one. If she's going to bring a guest, she has those 2 guests on her account. And those are the 2 people that she can bring. Something that we're looking and for liability purposes, because you're going to have a punch-in code that will let you into the facility. That's the most cost-effective way for us to make this work. One of the explicit rules is not to share that code. And we'll be able to check camera footage. We'll be able to do drop-in check-ins. So if your code is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you tell your neighbor, hey, just go use my code, or your, whoever, then we'll know that that code was accessed. And it's, in my mind, it would kind of expel you from utilizing the fitness center in the future.
But could you bring the person with you? Is what, would that be,
Well, it calls into, well, we could, again, we can formulate it however we want to. We were just trying to think of the most efficient ways to know who's using it and know that we are covered. Okay, you've registered to use it, you've signed the waiver, you are using it, and then now you're just bringing a guest of some kind. And I'd have to check in liability on that and
yeah,
everything
I
else.
see the complications.
So, there's a lot of questions. I didn't necessarily think of that in the process, but it's a question to ask as we look to use the facility.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the residents only, and also the price, you put down $10 a month for residents, right? Yeah, $10 a month for residents. I agree with that. Do you think we could, the trial period from open until December the 31st, think we could move that up? That's all I'm saying about there, or through December. That would be from now till December 31st.
It would be now until December 31st. So, and now meaning when we're ready, like the door code that we're looking at, we haven't had installed yet. And there's still some other aspects of this that we would need to get completed. And we'll do that as swiftly as we can, if that's the plan. But yeah, so.
Sure. Sounds good.
So I have a question. When we talked about this previously, so the fire department is who funded this. It was a grant to them for the equipment. And I think that's important because I have seen correspondence where someone had said that the city paid for that gym, and the city did not really pay for the gym. The fire department got a grant for the equipment. Of course, the city paid for the building. My question would be, in our previous conversations, it was about the logistics and the timing of the fire department and having residents in there. And I agree with Commissioner Taglerini. It is not a gym for the normal, go to the gym and do aerobics. It's a weightlifter's gym. So have y'all had some conversation on how that would work if the gym is open and the fire department's there? How are we going to be able to navigate that? Are you thinking hours, or are you thinking this timeline, this open would give us an opportunity to see if it works or doesn't?
Well, we would have to definitely set hours. We've had discussions. We haven't, Chief and I haven't come to any sort of, look, if I'm being honest, it's not ideal at all.
Yeah, my biggest concern is
Correct.
that our it was created for our firefighters. And I don't want to do anything to get in the way of what they do in that gym on their time. That's all that I'm thinking.
Yeah, and Commissioner, we would make sure that that's the priorities for the fire staff to use it. So we would obviously work around them.
Right.
And as Jay said, establish hours of operation that we would, again, in the trial period for residents only.
I think when we discussed that before, the conflict was, they could be in there doing their workout and get a call and they have to run out. And so I think that's important. I know some residents want a place to go, but I also think we should be mindful of our firefighters. And it's there for them primarily.
I would agree 100%. I believe it would be a benefit for few and an expense for all. I don't think we need the expense. I think we need to support the firefighters. It's their equipment. We don't need your staff coming down here 4 or 5 times a day to check to make sure that there's not somebody hurt or misusing the equipment. There's so many negatives against this option for the benefit of a few people. Next year, if this is implemented next year, this time, we'll be talking about, well, we really need to have somebody in there full time to watch things, and, or we really need the liability piece of it. The security of it. Okay, well, who's going to watch the cameras? See who's coming in, who's not coming in. I don't think I think the liability and the negatives outweigh the benefit for a few that would use it. And it's small and it's not designed for that. I don't have the full history behind it, but there's a reason that only the firefighters and, I think some staff are allowed to use it, that have an access key card to the building. I think that's fine. Just the way it is, personally.
Well, having worked out at the Treasure Island Fitness Club, they have a 24-hour key code. There's there's most of the time there's nobody there monitoring. It has cameras, everybody's got their key code, their entry. With regard to the fire department, absolutely, I feel like we should reserve time for them to work out. When I was working out there, they were generally there, I don't know, between 7:30 and 9:30, something like that, usually in the 8 o'clock hour, a couple of times a week. And I talk to them a lot. They have their regular requirements that they have to do. We need to clear out of there during that time. But I think it's just, it would be a nice thing to offer the few people who might want to use it, and it won't be a ton of people. And liability insurance can be in place. And maintenance, the machines are maintained on a regular basis. Anyway, I'd like to see this go. I'd like to see this at least go into a trial. Chief's here. I don't know what I'd love to hear what the firefighters think about this.
Again, ideally, we would like to keep it just for city staff. Majority of the fire department, are the ones who use it. I don't know if there's any stipulations, because the verbiage in the grant states the equipment was for firefighter cardiovascular health, firefighter cardio or general health and well-being. So if residents begin using it who aren't firefighters, can FEMA come back and say, you lied on the grant, now you need to pay us back? I don't know. I'm just trying to think of anything that could possibly trip us up.
Is there a way to get a definitive answer on that, whether or not anyone but firefighters are allowed to use it?
The answer is yes.
We
It
can
would
look-
be a look at the grant agreement that we had received. And there would also probably a dedication of site provision relative to the grant agreement. It would all be in that document. So we could find the answer out.
Could we, I'd love to hear that before we make any further action on that.
We're gonna have the city clerk pull it or the city manager find it, but yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
We could, similar to the prior item, bring it back with that information and for a vote, or whatever your direction, whatever your pleasure.
Love to see vote on it after we get that information.
All right. So then next up is facility use contract, the Spring Games LLC. City manager, or is that Jay?
Yeah, so we have,
Do we have public comment on that first? I'm thinking no. Go ahead, sir.
All right, so I'm relogging, my computer just died, but So this is to give you guys a brief history, since 2014 or 15, we've hosted Division I college softball on our ball fields for basically annually, with the exception of during 2020, we did have tournaments. 2021, we did not because of recovery time of COVID. But anyway, so we have hosted, I put together kind of a map. We've had 103 Division I colleges bring their softball teams to Madeira Beach to participate in these tournaments since we've begun them. And this actually kind of goes along with some of the capital improvements requests that you've seen either this past year or in future years, including the concession stand within our budget. There is an organization called the Spree Games LLC. It is their job to put together these tournaments to operate at facilities. And they've partnered with Visit St. Pete Clearwater to bring these teams to the area and compete at the beginning of the season, mostly for northern teams when it is colder and they can participate here, not have to deal with the snow. So we've put together a contract. We've worked with them the last 2 or 3 years, and we've put together a contract to continue working with them with the anticipation of seeing how it goes for 3 weeks next year. Basically just outlining anything and everything that we need to do and on our end and their end, just basically clearer terms for this contract and moving forward. So we just wanted to bring the contract forward to you guys, see if there's anything that particularly that you wanted to add or take out of it. But we've put I worked with Attorney Trask on this. They've done some other similar contracts in other cities that we modeled this after, and he actually made it very easy for us, but it very in depth as to what's clear what we provide, what's clear what they provide, and make sure that we can secure this tournament and these competitions in Madeira Beach. So yeah.
It appears that you've done a lot of details and research into this. I don't see any reason why we couldn't move forward with negotiating this contract for the spring games.
And we have shared the details with them. The feedback I got was, this is good. So they're happy with what we've presented. And again, we've had like 103 teams. It's quite impressive. It's nice to see some of these teams come here and then their alumni come and visit during the tournament, or they vacation here afterwards. And it just continues to, create that, that tourism that we're looking for. And then I know we do get a lot of questions about the bed tax dollars. So this is one of the ways that the city recuperates those funding. So that the bed tax dollars go to the TDC and then Visit St. Pete. And then they utilize those funds to pay for the field rental costs, make sure they're covered to bring in tournaments to offset some of their costs. So we get that money back in the same way, while also booking more hotel rooms and recuperating more bed tax dollars. So it's kind of a nice cycle that continues.
Great job, Jay. Great
Absolutely.
job. I think it looks perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, next up, 2023 update to fees and collection procedures manual. Is that you, city manager?
That's over to Andrew.
That's Andrew.
My item, yep. So in case you're not aware, the city has a fees and collections procedures manual that really outlines all the fees citywide for all charges for services, fines, and other fees of the city. And periodically, typically maybe annually, each department looks at those fees and proposes potential updates or new fees or changes to existing fees. And so that's what we're bringing forward to you all here today, just in a workshop setting. There's kind of 4 major areas where we do have some fee updates. That's in development services, parking, sanitation, and marina. And so there's representatives from each of those departments here if you have questions on any of those, but they're easily identified from the fees and collections manual in your packet, and that document is redlined. So anything that you see is redlined, crossed out, or added in red, those are the updates. If you're in agreement and approving of the changes that you see here in the manual, then any subsequent changes to the fees and collections procedures manual do need to occur and be ratified through an ordinance. So in the August meeting, in the mid-August meeting, we'll bring that as the first reading of the ordinance. And then second reading would be in mid-September, and then that new fee would take place in our new fiscal year, October 1st. So if you have any questions on any specific fees, each of the respective department heads can address those. And if all looks good, we'll put that on the agenda for the mid-August meeting for first reading of the ordinance.
For example, adding a new fee in community development, converting a non-conforming, non-habitable area into habitable area, $1,000 fee that did not previously exist. As Mr. Yeah. I'm guessing converting a vacant lot into a buildable lot, but staff
actually-
can better explain.
Non-habitable would be like a screen room, your back screen room. It's not habitable and you want to close it in and air condition it, and that would be habitable.
Oh.
That's what it's
Thank you.
referring to. Yeah.
Looks pretty self-explanatory.
So why would we want to charge a fee for that? That's an impact fee, which I'm against anyway, a residential impact fee.
It's not identified as an impact fee. I mean, I understand.
Sure is.
I understand what you're saying, but not in the terms of the impact fees that were created, but I think Jenny can better explain.
Yes, so that would be an application that has to go to the special magistrate. So converting a garage or a carport that's legally non-conforming into habitable space. So then you would go to the special magistrate. If they granted you that application, then you'd have to get a building permit. If you received a building permit, then you would have the impact fee.
Okay, so I've been through this.
Yes, that's the exact same thing that you went through.
So
years
for
ago.
the special magistrate, I had to pay a fee of 1,300 or whatever it was.
I think it was 800. I'm not
I
exactly.
don't remember. It was,
but-
but there was a fee for that.
Yes, it just wasn't specific in the fee.
So this is to replace the special magistrate?
No, it's that
No.
exact same application and process that you went through. It just wasn't specific in the fee schedule.
So
So
if you want
we're
to,
just inputting that in there.
it makes no sense to me. I'm sorry. So you want to convert a space, whether it's your garage or it's a screened in porch, you want to convert it into a air conditioned space. You're going to go to the special magistrate and that's going to cost you a fee.
Yes.
And you're gonna have-
$1,000 fee
That's
that's in here.
But I thought you just said that that's not. This is not the special magistrate fee.
That is the special magistrate fee.
Can we have that outlined that way then? Because that doesn't say that. That says conversion of a non-conforming, non-habitable
if you
area
look
to a
at-
habitable area.
If you look at page 201, it's B, special magistrate hearing, so it's under the special magistrate.
So under
So it's
Okay.
B6.
page right above.
It's just on the
fees
other
to-
page.
All right. The only reason I had to go to the special magistrate is because my garage that I wanted to convert was less than 6 feet off of the property line or whatever it was.
Yes, so
was
it was
existing.
legally non-conforming.
Right. So other than that, I wouldn't have had to go to the special magistrate.
Correct. If it was within the setback, then you wouldn't have to go to the
Right.
special magistrate.
But
hearing.
according to this, so you're stating this would not apply unless it had to go in front of the special magistrate.
Correct.
Okay,
If it's non-conforming.
Okay,
So
it's
if
very-
it doesn't
very-
meet the setback.
it's very confusing.
Conforming.
I get it. I missed that 201, so pardon my tone. But that's because I didn't understand because you're gonna pay for your permit fee for any changes you have. I just saw the fees starting to build up and it's like,
Okay.
why would anyone want to improve their property if they have to continue to pay these fees? And that's why I'm against the residential impact fees. We want people to improve their property. So that was my misunderstanding. Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Any other comments?
I think I saw something in here, $75 for a toter. Is that correct? And I expect that would be for replacement. I thought I saw that.
Yes, Vice Mayor, that is for the replacement of a toter because we have had quite a few go missing. Being stolen. I'm not making
We're
funny
not.
business.
I didn't know that they were that people loved them that much.
They do.
There are some who do. and
They
we
do.
don't
Now, they
know
all have
why.
serial numbers, correct?
Yes, sir, but we don't track them by serial number.
Maybe
I don't
we
have the
shouldn't have told people
capability
that.
or the. Everybody can put your address on your toter. That's
Is that
how we
allowable?
track. Yes, sir, it is.
Yes.
Good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this? Are you good, Andrew?
I'm good if you're comfortable with moving forward with the ordinance.
Absolutely.
Awesome, thanks.
All right. Next up, Frontier phone lines. What?
I don't think we have a section on this. It's just something that I
No.
wanted to bring up. And if anyone here wasn't at the meeting, in our communities, we have the copper phone lines that, to my understanding, are no longer serviced by Verizon or whoever is supposed to service them now. And most homes, if not all, have kind of eliminated that service to begin with. Now we have the phone lines and the little rusted
Junction boxes.
junction boxes, cans next to the telephone poles. I'm requesting, and I think Director Webfer may have done some backup work or background work on this. That if they can be removed, let's get them removed.
Well, hello again. So I think we're all aware Frontier is not allowed to work in the city currently because of the damages that were done in 2022. With that being said, we stopped them mid undergrounding of their fiber. When they were doing so, they were also cleaning up their lines. So we are setting up meetings right now to try to not negotiate, but try to come to a consensus. I'll let Attorney Trask.
You want to handle that or do you want me to? So over the last year or so, our office has been working, I have been working very diligently to try to get the city paid. The city is owed $551,000 for the road repair, the damage that was caused by Frontier. Yesterday, I received a phone call from the attorney that I've been working with. He asked me a very simple question. Tom, if Frontier or its insurance company was to pay the $551,000, would you allow Frontier to begin applying for permits for work to be done within the city of Madeira Beach? The city manager has been adamant from the very, very beginning, we were not going to allow them damage any more of our city. I did talk to the city manager about, this probability or possibility, and the answer was yes. So I'm expecting shortly a check for $551,000 to be paid to the city as a direct result of the efforts between the city manager, myself, and Megan over the last year. If we're unsuccessful in the next couple of days, we have scheduled a meeting between all of the players, the contractor, Vertec, Frontier, the insurance companies, Pinellas County, city staff. That date has been nailed down at this point, or very close to being nailed down. So if we don't get paid, then that's the next step. If we're not successful on either one of those steps, I've asked the city manager about getting authority from this commission to file suit against Frontier to get our money. We've waited long enough. We upfronted all that money for that repair and we're entitled to it. There's no defenses to any claim that we have for that money. There may be issues between the contractor and Frontier or their subcontractors because of what they did or didn't do, but that does not involve us. We're entitled to the money. And I'm hoping to get a check to Robin here in the next couple of days. And that would put us back in a position that Frontier could step back in and address those issues like the drop lines, the bearing of the drop lines, the cans and all those other things. But right now, we're not allowing them to do anything in the city because of the 2 streets that they tore up. So, and you'll remember that this is one where they were drilling under the road. They hit the reclaimed water line. It blew open that line. It raised the road up, whatever an amount of inches or feet. And then when all the water went out, it dropped. And so the whole road had to be rebuilt and that pipe had to be fixed and it had to be done on an emergency basis. And so that's why the number is so big. So did I miss anything, Megan?
No, sir.
Okay,
You
so.
hit it all, and we
Long
have all the
story.
documentation, all the pictures. So once that is done, we will allow Frontier to come in here. I'm sure their first thing on their plate is going to be to finish their undergrounding, but we'll also work with them to clean up the lines, because believe me, I've seen them. I know that they still have some lines that are like literally taped across driveways or their equipment has fallen over. But in a lot of cases, what we've seen also is that Frontier doesn't even realize that it's theirs. Because they purchased it from Verizon. So we have to then prove to them basically that it's theirs. Same thing goes for Spectrum. They don't understand what's theirs that's out here either. So that becomes a struggle.
Oh, it's a great opportunity since you're having this dialogue to put that on the checklist.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
What are you doing about the large junction boxes that have been left in people's yards for over a year now? I saw one neighbor put it out with the trash and they took it. It's like, oh my.
We had told Frontier to come and collect those because in one of the cases in Boca Ciega, there was a beehive. Actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. I think it was on Lillian Drive. But they've chosen to leave those out. I don't even know that they know what they left out here. We kind of kicked them out of town pretty quick.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's
Thank you.
it's been a painstakingly long process, but, and I say that because I dealt with this 20 years ago in Clearwater. Very similar. They didn't destroy streets, but they did destroy a lot of yards in various neighborhoods. When Verizon, you may recall Verizon Fios, and it was a disaster. Not quite, again, where they owed the municipality $500,000 for repairs, but it's just interesting that nearly 20 years later, they're still causing damage. And this is not a small local or regional company. This is a billions of dollars company and industry. And I think they just choose to do whatever they feel is what they want to do. And so that's why I said, you're not placing any mechanized. You can use a shovel, a rake, and a hoe. And that's what you're going to use to make whatever repairs you need to do. So hopefully this will get resolved and they can go back to hopefully just digging holes properly.
Do we know if any of those copper lines are used by any resident?
So I do know when we were repairing part of 140th, we found one of those, and I think it was actually some type of gas that was in the line. I don't remember the exact terminology, but it was a very, very, very old line, and it was abandoned by Verizon or whomever owned it prior to. So I don't think that those are in use any longer, but nobody, same as a lot of, Pinellas County, if they abandon a line, they leave it in the ground.
It's a fair assumption.
They don't pull them. That was lightning that you just saw. But it's very common. They, rather than pulling them because it costs more money, they're just going to abandon them in the ground. And then we unfortunately.
I'd be
find them.
amenable to that if they took the cans off and cut the lines 6 inches below the ground. I mean, I think most people would.
Sawzall.
We will take care of it once they repay us.
Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, next item up is election sign options.
That one's also me.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see anything in the packet.
No.
Okay.
So my short time on the board, I've seen a few elections before and after I've been here. And election signs are always an issue during election season. Where you're allowed to put them, where you're not allowed to put them. When you get high winds and do they blow away because they're not there anymore? They're an eyesore. Now I understand free speech and the ability to ask your neighbor to stick a sign in their yard. You can't take that away, but we sure can incentivize it. Or I think we can. I talked to Mr. Trask about it. I haven't talked to him about it, but bring it up. Can we incentivize it so that when you get your election package, if you sign off that you will not put yard signs or you will not purchase yard signs, that the city offers other type of marketing. We have a IT department, maybe a video that goes on to their website that you can get a 5-minute video with everything you stand for, get that out. Or other avenues of the ways that the city gets information out. I talked to one resident and they suggested maybe there's a special spot or two within the city that's city property or whatever that contains any yard signs, that you don't have 100 yards. I know I put out 100 yard signs and I have 50 in my garage that I got back. Where'd they go? I don't know. I asked permission for every one that I put out. So I know there's that. And I know it can become a real problem. So I wanted to get the discussion out between, see what everyone thought about it and then get Mr. Trask's opinion, whether it's even something that's feasible. I don't know, start the discussion.
So I'll start the discussion. I mean, obviously election signs are an issue not only in this city, but, countywide and statewide. But people have the legal right to have signs in their yard so long as they meet the sign code. I did not, know what the issue was for this because there was nothing in the packet and we can review that. But there's a lot of case law out there that says that people have the right to do it. Some cities allow up to 6 personal signs in their yard. And we can't regulate on what it says on those signs. Save the whales, Greenpeace, I hate so-and-so, whatever. We can't regulate what they say. So people have the right to do that. I mean, if you wanted to provide some direction in the election packet that people agree not to do certain things, sure, people can agree not to do certain things, but that's not going to prohibit every other one of your residents to place a sign in their yard because they love that candidate. You do regulate signs by way of not allowing them in your rights of way or on city property or public property. So all signs should be on private property anyhow.
Can you incentivize a candidate not to purchase signs for placement? You can't do anything if your neighbor wanted to put out a private sign that he really would like you to win. I get that. But to incentivize a candidate from purchasing signs and asking their neighbors, and in return, the city offer certain perks. Yeah,
Okay,
thank
so
you.
the city should not be using the city website or anything related to the city for any individual candidate. You just should not be doing it. And there is some state statutes that talk about what we call electioneering communications. There is also case law and a statute that says that we cannot use city resources or city funds to promote a candidate or a, a proposition for a referendum. We just cannot do it. So I would push away from, if you don't put out your signs, we can put you on the city's website. That's not something that we can do. Okay.
You have to worry about freedom of speech.
I get it, but I would just, my thought pattern was it would be something that could be offered, it's not.
That's why you would hire a private media company, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know, there's yard signs are always an issue. All right, thank you for your input.
Okay, next up is shade structures. If we have public comment, please come up.
Mayor, do you want city staff to make the presentation before?
Oh, please.
Public,
No.
I think city staff is going to be addressing this. Then the public will be able to say what there is, and then you could hear both public comments and staff comment before you act.
Perfect. No, that's
You
a
deal
great
with that.
idea. Great, thank you.
All right, so it's either
City
Marcy
staff.
or Jenny. Okay.
Thank you.
Marcy Forbes, I'm going to talk to you guys tonight about shade structures. This is the same thing we brought before the planning commission, so we kind of wanted to revisit it with you guys. So I'll just go ahead and read the information that we gave you guys in the packet. The background for us is the Madeira Beach Land Development Regulations do not define shade structure nor any structure that would be directly comparable. While we have definitions for structure broken into subcategories of major, minor, non-habitable major, and coastal or shore protection, only the minor definition makes mention of a gazebo. Other definitions reviewed were accessory building as a general provision, definition, and accessory structure defined for reference in the floodplain management section. Neither of these, however, address shade structures. The land development regulations that will require review and possible alterations are mentioned here in this document and are provided as an attachment. Pending any alteration in definitions and verbiage, other LDRs may be subsequently impacted as well and will be addressed accordingly at that time. And I provided the links to the code. And just to be clear too, the Planning Commission had kind of asked us to identify what code would be impacted with the shade structure. So we tried to go through and kind of identify those. So this conversation was kind of geared towards the impact to the LDRs. Discussion. Permitting of accessory structures in Madeira Beach has some unique considerations. All of Madeira Beach lies within a special flood hazard area, and several areas further fall into coastal high hazard areas. As an example, most all of Bay Point. And I gave the link again to the flood maps for people to look at. With regards to floodplain management, FEMA allows for accessory structures, at-grade accessory structures only when utilized for parking, storage, and they have limited sizing associated with those limited uses. Some of the questions as the city begins to decide if we want to, how we want to do shade structures, if we want to start permitting them, we wanted to identify some of the questions that we thought were a big driving force in this consideration. So questions to consider would be defining of a shade structure and or sun shelter with differentiation between shades that are freestanding structures attached to and extend out from the house or a retractable style. What setbacks would be applicable to the structure? What is the allowable square footage and height? Would construction be limited to 4 minimally sized posts and composed of what type of material? We would definitely want to limit it to no walls. Possibly define the roofing material that we would allow. If other than an official cheeky hut, what permit design documents would be required? And how will the allowances of these structures be viewed by FEMA and what impact could it have on our community rating system? Visibility of neighboring properties, potential for more outdoor kitchens, and what to do with the shade structures that have already been built and were not permitted. In general, the permitting of shade structures will need to take into consideration the maximum area of a lot or parcel to be covered by structures, which currently allows for 40% in all of R1, R3, and in R2 for single family, and then townhomes 50% in R2. I can go through and read these percentages if you guys want to, but basically it was kind of a breakdown of just, obviously we have a limitation on the structures that can cover your lot. If we start permitting shade structures, we need to take into consideration, we would need to increase that, adjust that, take that into consideration. So that's an example of why we listed some of these things, because we will have to touch each of these as we go through and make, adjustments to allow them whichever way we decide to go. Once we do decide that, if we do, it could impact other stuff and we'd have to review it at that time, depending on how we proceed forward with this. So I think the big thing for us is, we have been doing research and wanted to kind of just bring it to you guys' attention and get the feedback necessary to move forward or figure out where we stand.
And to figure out what other research we need to go moving forward based on what you decide.
Okay, so public comment next. All right, commissioners.
Has this been, you say this has been an ongoing discussion. Was there some event or some complaint that's got this started?
We've had multiple complaints about tiki structures in people's rear yards.
Is that what you mean
especially on
by
the water?
when you call it, is it
Cheeky hut?
cheeky hut? Is that
Yes.
like a tiki hut? Is that
Yeah, very similar. It's built by the, I think, Muskogee and Seminole tribes. You don't have to, it's not subject to the Florida Building Code, but you still need a permit because you still have to meet the zoning codes. So the location and the size, the height, it still has to meet those regulations, but it doesn't have to be reviewed by the Florida Building Code.
And it has limitations on like water, power, can't be
Yes.
attached to it. So so that's a cheeky hut. It has very definitive parameters around it and what qualifies it as a cheeky hut.
And are the complaints that there's too many of them or people want to have them and can't get them?
Just code complaints. Sometimes people want them and they can't get them and they say, oh, well, my neighbor has that. They turn them in, then we have code compliance go out there.
There's
You-
been a dent. I'm sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
We've just had that throughout the years. It's always an issue. I feel like ever since I've been with the city, it's always a reoccurring issue.
So I see one of the questions is, what do we do with the people that are non-compliant?
Yes, exactly. So if we allow this, then what do we do with the non-compliant or the ones that have been there for years? And we have code compliance out there. We don't know how they're constructed, when they were constructed. It opens up a can of worms. So it's, how do we proceed with it? If we do
Are
allow
these
them?
huts, are they in the ground or are they not in the ground? Or we don't know.
Case by case. A lot of them are in the ground, but how are they constructed? We're not sure. We didn't go out there. We didn't permit it. So
I mean, now that you tell me what they are, I see them all over the place.
yes,
So there's a ton of them. Especially on the water, seems like.
absolutely.
So you're asking our direction, is that what we're talking about here? How do we
Yes,
feel?
just a direction of, would you like to permit them? Any foreseeable way forward, or are you leaning towards not? Currently, our codes do not allow for what you think of as cheeky hut or a tiki hut, something like that. We do allow accessory structures imagine like a shed where you'd put your
Right.
gardening equipment. Something small, but something to the a shade structure, a gazebo, we really don't have anything in our code that would allow this.
I think I saw that. I see pergola in there. That's like, I think
Yes,
that's
but
a
it's open.
it's an open thing. Is that part of this discussion or is that? Or that we're not addressing that yet?
Not really.
I'm just trying to get in my head because, I mean, I've lived here a long time. I see lots of stuff. The thing, my inclination is, I think it's what give us our character. So I like them, but I'm not living next door to one. And I don't have one. So I guess I really don't have a dog in the fight, but I feel like people should be able to have something like that.
Well, definitely, especially with the weather, the way it is during our summertime now, where there are residents in Madeira Beach who can't enjoy their backyard or their area because they have no ability to get shade. I'm all for shade structures as long as they don't interfere with a neighbor's view.
Right, yeah.
There
So-
creates the problem.
Well,
If they're within limits, I have no problem with that.
keep in mind, the biggest issue, because I've talked with Jenny several times about this, is with the smaller lots, it's the setback. Right now, I think it's got to be 30 foot off the rear or 25.
Yes.
And
depending
there
on the
just
zone.
isn't that room, but
Right.
talking about the view, there's an ordinance that was enacted a couple years ago that negates the only view that you're allowed to per ordinance now is directly out the back of your structure. You can have your 6-foot high fence and that's all the height you can go on a fence, but any natural occurring landscape is allowed to grow to its natural height. So if you've got bamboo or whatever that can grow to 60 foot, so be it. So in that ordinance, it doesn't say what your view is, but it defines your view, that it's directly out the back of your home. So
So how does that impact, wondering, how does that impact the building of a tiki hut?
well, it could affect, it could
So
be
you're saying like a
someone's
rear view neighbor?
concern that they could lose their view left to right. The next door neighbors, they could lose their view left or right, where we have the ordinance in place with the natural landscaping that you can landscape all the way down your property and it can grow to its natural height.
Even if it blocks the neighbor's
Absolutely.
view of whatever they're
It's,
looking at.
it's in the ordinance. Absolutely. It absolutely is. I wouldn't be saying that.
Right.
However, I'm in agreement with some type of shade, but I think we have to curtail size, height limitations. You know, and we're gonna have to leave all of that to the experts there of what they think. I mean, I know Marcy looked at what Cape Coral, Florida. I played heck trying to find someone that defined it in their code. Could you find anything else?
City staff did do some research. One that jumped out at me was Fort Lauderdale. They have it such that if you're on the waterfront, I think it's like 10 feet off your rear lot line. And then side setbacks are 5 feet, limited 12 feet in height and less than 200 square feet or less. So they seem to have
200
defined-
square foot, so that's 20 by 20?
220, 20 by 10.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my.
yeah. So they limited, they limited that. And the square footage, if you were going to do it, you'd want to do a square footage and not a size, like, 8 by.
You
want to
have, yeah, you have to. I mean, you have to be cognizant and respectful to your neighbors. So, yeah.
And
we-
so, yeah, I mean, we can come up, I guess that's where the research has taken us. I guess it's gonna kind of your guys' direction on if that is a route that we want to take, because you can already see, the unfolding issues that are gonna arise. So,
And the thing is, if we don't do something, then for the new construction, what are we gonna do about the existing construction? We're gonna have some really, really upset people, which they're just trying to get out of the sun.
Yeah, so we'll have to figure out what we do with the existing. And right now, I'm not really sure exactly how we do that. So there'll also be more research.
yeah, and currently we have 2 that were slated for code enforcement hearings on Monday. We've tabled those because we wanted to figure out which direction we were going to go. So I'm not sure how long we'll be able to do that with code enforcement, but we did table the Monday tiki.
You mean
structure
code
ones.
enforcement means haven't forcing someone to tear down one they've got?
Yes, they would have to get a building permit. And currently, there's no way to get a building permit for those structures.
Well,
Maybe you could come back to us with the specifications from both coasts and seeing what they're allowing, and maybe we can come up with a happy medium somewhere.
well, I know this is not apples, kind of apples to oranges, but we have a lot of 1-story houses and we didn't tear them down. But if they get torn down, they can't build it the way it is. I'm inclined to letting the ones that are existing to leave them alone.
Yeah.
As I'm showing my hand here, and allowing a way for people to get, at least starting now, allow people to get them with some kind of guidance and code enforcement.
Yes, just don't encourage anybody to run out and build a tiki hut right now, so.
I'm not saying.
So, yeah, no, yeah, but yeah, so you do it, it does, yeah, so we can
would-
come back up with some
I would be
options.
inclined to agree with the same. Yeah,
No.
definitely.
And we've got to come up with a reasonable size expectation, square footage wise.
My mindset is that they definitely should be allowed. That they should be treated sort of like when you get your dock permit. And I think this was brought up in the planning commission.
Yes.
Where that if it's in the center third of your yard, that's fine. If you wanted to put it on the edge of your yard, and you can make a requirement offset off that, you know, if it's 5 feet, like Fort Lauderdale or whatever, that you need written authorization from your neighbor. When they passed the ordinance with the shrubbery being able to go as high as it naturally, that was before my time. I would have voted against that, but has set some precedents. I have a neighbor that had to remove theirs with code enforcement, that they put in a $40,000 tiki hut. It had granite countertops. It was 6 foot in, you know, the posts were 6 foot in the ground. It was FEMA compliant, or I would imagine, with that kind of structure. Had a metal roof. They had to take it out. All the direct neighbors were sad about it because it was a great area. Existing structures, if the board and if this all passes, I would think that you give them a window to come in and get a permit. And just like if you do permitted work after the fact now, if you build a bathroom out, you're going to get a penalty. So you have to pay a penalty, but then we'll come out and inspect it and make it compliant. Because there's certain rules and regulations in the building department that you have to build it a certain way, and they have certain reasons, FEMA being one of them. We don't want structures out there that if we do get a storm surge that are going to cause damage to someone else's home or your own home.
Yeah, I like Cape Corals where the roof is sacrificial at 70 miles an hour or greater.
Yeah, they were specific with their roofing, the thatched roof, and I agree intuitively that feels like a right way to go, because at 70 miles per hour, it blows off, no harm, no foul, posts stay intact, so that, you know, that's kind of a good setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with the mayor that maybe you can bring some of those to a future meeting that we can kind of go through them a little bit and see what sticks.
Sounds good. And with that direction, one of the things we were also going to do is reach out to the Florida Department of Emergency Management and the State Floodplain Management Office to make sure we draft up something that, you know, if we do bring to everybody that they're like, okay, we see what you've done here and we're on board with that as well. So we want to make sure too that with this direction, we kind of want to get their buy-in as well.
That's a great idea. How about the county? Do you need to do the same with the county?
We talked about that.
Yes, that would have to be reviewed by the county. So we were talking about reaching out to them as well. And just getting their feedback, if there's any feedback.
Great.
Yeah, so we will need a little time. We have CRS coming up. I know you guys keep hearing about that. So we are still focused on that, but we're not losing sight of this issue and we're staying focused on it. So we're doing our best to get that. And like I said, once we pick some communities that we would like to emulate, we'll reach out directly to them as well, not just look at their ordinance, but some lessons learned from them would be good as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have public comment? Please come up.
I turn this on? Okay.
It's on.
So I'm that neighbor. My name's Michelle Helms. I'm at 546 Johns Pass Avenue. And I'm the one that actually came down to the city back on October 14th of 22 when they were erecting, our neighbors were erecting their tiki hut. It is very large. I understand the view in your ordinance that you all passed, but that's natural. This is not natural. This is man-made. So you want to put the trees in, you want to put your shrubbery in, you want it to grow, whatever your ordinance is, great. But this ordinance is not about natural. This is about a tiki hut that was built by somebody. So this doesn't fall into the view as you're talking about direct, because in my opinion, my direct view, yes, okay, it's out front, but I still have a peripheral view. Just like when you drive, everybody has that peripheral. Well, it's not the same looking at beautiful shrubbery when you're looking at a man-made tiki hut. Now, additional to this, Christina is got some issues and the city allowed them to build up their pool deck about 4 or 5 feet or 4 feet to be at the regular level of where she walks out. No problem. Didn't have any issues with that. But when you now put a tiki hut on top of that, it just wasn't where it was. And I believe they even applied for permits or whatever, and they were denied a couple times. But now here we are, when this started on October 14th, and I came directly down here at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning and told you all it got dragged out. Maybe they got a letter on October 20th. At that time, it still wasn't completed. The building department or the code enforcement department did not stop it. In the time that we rebuilt our house back a couple of years ago, we had to take down our porch because we were 30 feet or we were just over 30, under 30 feet from the setback of the seawall. So being a foot off, we had to take off a 10-foot overhang, which would have been a little bit more of a shade here or there, but it was only 10 feet from the actual house. Now I'm looking at a tiki hut that's less than 10 feet or whatever it is from the seawall that comes basically all the way back, maybe 5, 6 feet from the house or 10 feet. That when I had a problem, you all didn't want that to happen. And I was told by Linda Portal, you can't apply for a variance because you're already in the middle of building your house. And I said, well, then why didn't you catch that when we submitted the permit and we submitted the blueprints? Sorry, take it down. So, you know, I'm going through what we went through, but I turn around and ask you all for help. And I come down here on the day that it's being erected. And here we are, July 26th, and you're all looking at shade structure, and that's great, but there is limitation. And I know the mayor came out and saw, and I know I emailed stuff to Robin also, but there's a point now that where I'm looking at, you made me comply. I came in front of the magistrate. I had to redo stuff. Where are we at that we're now tabling it because now everybody needs shade? What happened to my shade when I was building the house and needed the porch? Not allowed. Couldn't ask for a permit or a variance for that. As much as I wanted it, Linda told me no. So I'm looking at you going, this is great. From this point on in your future, you want to deal with this, that's great. But as far as I'm concerned, back in October of 22, on the 14th at 8:40 something in the morning, I was down here. You all could have resurrected this issue back then. Now we're all, but everybody needs shade. That's great. I have no problem. Write your ordinance, figure out your law, whatever you want to do, and we can go forward. But as far as I'm concerned, something that is new like this, you all want to let that go by. I mean, it's a very large tiki hut. You all live next door to that for a field view, not natural view. This is not natural. Okay. And then you deal with other things that I'm not going to go into. So, I mean, I want you all to think about that if you were in my position. You want Madeira Beach to be beautiful. You want everything to be great and dandy and everybody to love everything and come in and, you know, support the city. But my experiences with the city in the last 2 years has not been very good. And if y'all were in my shoes, I don't think you'd like it. Just as much as Ray had his neighbor take down a tiki hut. I'm sorry, I wasn't allowed a porch because it was 29 feet from the seawall. Now I'm looking at something that's less than 10 feet and it's, I don't know, 14 by 14. I don't even know what size it is, but but it's very large. So where is it that it's not okay for me, but it's okay for them? There you go. It's my opinion. So I'm not in favor of it at this point. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Maybe one thing that we could do while these people are coming up to talk, maybe that we need to have the discussion, there's got to be natural landscaping that could conceal the cheeky or tiki. Just an idea to put it out there that we have some options.
Yeah, we can look into that.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, I'm the girl that has the problem. So to your very point, I'm just gonna address it. We have areca palms that will block the view of my very large tiki hut. And they as well have erected palm trees anyway, I'm here just to remind you guys that I was here at the planning commissioners meeting and on July 10th, and we have such a strong desire from our neighbors to have shade. And I wish that you could have had your shade. I wish that everybody could have the shade because we're west facing and we need that relief. It is a quality of life issue. I've spent more time outside in the last 6 months than I have in 10 years of living in my house. And it's not just us, we're fighting for everybody to have that kind of, outdoor space. And I'm sorry that your neighbor, I don't think it was a tiki though. You said it was a solid roof, right?
Yeah, it was a metal roof.
Okay,
but
so I mean, we have to really define what these shade structures mean. Ours was built by the Masuki tribe. It is solid in the ground. I think if your inspectors came out, they would see that it's not going anywhere. So that is what I kind of wanted to stand here and remind you. There are 26 plus other tikis that are existing. So if we're going to do a revamp and have everybody apply, are we going to go to every one of their houses and say, you have to apply for a permit? We have to think about that. That's a lot of administration work. So.
Excuse me, ma'am, can I ask,
Yes, of course.
what are the dimensions of your tiki? I'm just curious.
Michael, what is? But the posts are not that. That's the roof line, I think. I'd have to get.
Just curious.
Yeah. The roof obviously overhangs 2 feet from the posts, to give us shade, but.
Thank you.
It is watertight. You can sit out there when it's raining. It's great. So, and there's lots of them around, and that's where we got the idea from. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment?
I think someone at the planning commission mentioned the view triangle.
Yes, that was one thing that we wanted to research a little bit more as well.
Right. I really thought the idea of the same as the dock in the center third.
Very similar.
It would get the same effect basically. But if you had neighbors that were amenable and you, just like your dock, just like your boat lift, if your particular lot made sense that you could move it and your neighbor's willing to sign off on it.
Any other comments? All right, next up is development agreement processes.
Here again, I brought that up.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I won't bring up anything next month. But don't count on it. So anyway, based on feedback from residents, I really couldn't answer the questions, but I would just wanted to bring out that we really need to review, approve, amend, whatever that process is. The board needs to become involved about what is being proposed early in the design so that they can help. I don't know who negotiates what the city wants in return. I think that we should have some standards, but that should be that should be something that also that the commissioner, five minds here want to discuss. It may be parking revenue, it may be city amenities, it may be lots of things. Depending on where that plan development structure is being proposed. It may be sightlines. It could be a lot of things, but I think that the board needs to have an opportunity to address that, to look at that early in the process, and maybe midterm in the process before a final vote at the end of the process. For the board just to get involved at the very end, I think is counterproductive. The second point is, once a PD is approved and you have plans and specs that have been approved, that's what's approved, not an amendment to that. So that if anything changes, staff shouldn't have the authority to change it. That should have to come back to the board. It may come back for public discussion. There's been reports, I don't know true or false, that process hasn't always been followed. That there's been changes to plans and specs, just like it was a standard development that didn't have to go through the PD, that as long as it met the code, it was approved. And I don't know that once it's a PD that the staff should have that be able to approve any changes. That's my 2 points.
Any other commissioner comments on this?
Just so I understand, you're talking specifically about plan developments.
Yes.
And I think Mr. Hudson, when he was here, he actually made a list, a table of this, like if they want, the plan development wants this, they have to provide this. Jenny, do we have that or something like that already?
I remember we talked about that. I don't think that anything.
So it might be in
came
the
from that. It
notes.
was like a matrix that we were talking about, but
Yeah.
I don't think there was anything that was brought
Official.
up.
That discussion, I was
from
part
what
of
I
that
remember.
discussion. So we had a meeting or a few meetings on it
Yeah.
where we were throwing our thoughts out there, but I don't believe anything was
Yeah, I don't think so
voted
either.
on or put into the actual plan.
Was it more of a guideline?
It was just, we were talking about the exact same thing, that the board needs to, and the city needs to have a little structure about, what do we want in return? What's important to the city? What do the residents get out of it? If we're gonna amend height or setbacks or whatever the PD allows, I'm not certain. And again, what does the PD allow? And maybe we want to look at that as well. I'd like to look through that whole process so that we can talk about what a PD does allow. And what do the residents get out of it?
So be looking at the PD section in the code, potentially doing a credits. I think that's what we were talking about last time, was like a matrix or credits. So if you get X amount of credits, then you could go an additional 4, something along those lines.
Yeah, I think you had brought that up. I
Yeah.
wasn't really in tune with the whole credit.
But there was just one option.
But yeah, I
then
get
I
it.
don't-
And
I
it's
don't
probably a
think it
very good
really-
idea.
I don't think anything really came out of that. I think it was stopped.
It was kind of just, a lot of things just kind of get.
Just petered out.
Yeah.
So it's something that we could look at. I would definitely would need direction from our attorney, from Mr. Trask, especially about the development agreement process, because that's really that undergoes with the developer's attorney and our attorney, and it's a contract. So I would heavily rely on our attorney on any changes in the PD and development agreement.
I think something to remember is that I know that Robin has expressed wanting to give us more information. And the one-on-ones that we do, I do a one-on-one at least twice a month with Robin and ask about anything I've heard or what have you. But they are the professionals and we pay them to advise us. I think our input is greatly, but I think that we really look to them to provide us with, through their conversations with Mr. Trask, with the attorney. I think getting involved in knowing what's going on and having an opinion is important, but I think that we really have to rely on them to guide us down the path of what you, because the deal with a development agreement is to get the most out of the developer you can get. That's the whole idea you do one. So and not everybody sees it that way, but when you do a development agreement, you give the developer something, you should get, you being us, the city, should get way more than what we're giving away.
I think you're making my point for me.
And I think that what that is giving that mindset to the professionals to have that mindset when they're sitting down looking at those things. In particular, I had somebody say to me one time that they felt like we didn't get enough when we did the schooner approval.
I'd be one of those.
Right. But when we did this development, we could have got a lot more, but we were too focused on height. So I'm agreeing with you.
Right.
There's a happy medium in there somewhere. And the word to me is communication,
But I'm
and
just,
a lot of it.
I'm just thinking that as the city staff is going through it, conversations with 5 additional people is not a bad thing. With the schooner, I didn't even think about it. And, I think we're both on the planning commission at the time. I didn't even think about the whole idea of parking across the street and the city being able to negotiate that parking revenue from that parking lot, regardless of how it was paid for. And that's something that would give back to the city for years. Now, I don't know, if the more conversation about something, the better, because I think that would have come up and I think we could have negotiated that. And you've seen parking revenue for the city is just under ad valorem, and it's getting there. So a huge revenue.
So I bet Mr. Hudson, who's here, I bet he could provide that document that he gave us. And if not, maybe I could look through all the agenda minutes to find it, because that document exists. But I also this is just devil's advocate here. There's a number of people who don't think we need professional plan developments at all. And to back that up, when right after I won the position, Mr. Carnes took me on a buggy ride around the city and showed me the things he developed. And many of them required no plan development. They never went before the board, and they're lovely. So I think we talk a lot about plan development, and I'm not taking a side on that, because as I've said before, if I don't feel I have any qualifications, or maybe I don't have enough information, I'm not going to take a side on that. But I want to say that some people don't think we need plan developments. And we've talked a lot about, if we're having plan developments, let's put it on a chart and say, okay, this is what we want. This is what the city wants in order for that to happen. Both those things are true and exist.
I don't think any of us disagree. I think we might just be saying it differently.
All right, I need to jump in. I just want to make sure that you understand, it's not a free-for-all. There are things called illegal exactions. When you tell a developer that they have to pay for this or that, and it has no correlation to what was actually being developed, it's an improper or illegal exaction. The city is going to get sued for that. So you can't have your wish list and I want this and I'll approve you if I get this. Well, no, that's not the way it works. The way it works is that, for example, this building needs a fire hydrant. And ordinarily, the city would have to pay for that because of the number of units there. They're going to do that. They're going to pay for the fire hydrant. And in direct return, we're going to get something else. We're getting the payment for the fire hydrant for the work that they're doing. That's a direct offset. Their development is providing for something and there is some additional need. That's where you're going to be able to address it. It's not a, yeah, I want this in return for that. There has to be some direct correlation. Otherwise, we're going to be in another lawsuit. So the credit suggestion, that I think is something that we could look at. When I was with Dunedin, one of the things that we did is that we addressed buildings, commercial buildings or multifamily buildings that were providing certain amenities. For example, solar panels on the roof. Then that we would give them a certain credit for that particular thing. So there is a way to do an offset, but there has to be some correlation between what we're requesting and what they're actually providing. And one other thing I wanted to mention too, we talk about PDs and development agreements as being one and the same thing. They're absolutely, one has nothing to do with the other. A planned development is a development that is being proposed that doesn't necessarily fit within your zoning category. And so certain changes are being requested to allow that. Now, we want to nail it down in what they're going to do in a site plan. So we have a development agreement that we draft and we attach that site plan to it along with all the other necessary provisions that would protect the city. One of the things that was mentioned today, for example, was, no changes. Well, when you approve those development agreements, more than likely there's going to be a provision in it that says that if it is a minor deviation from the plan, that you're going to authorize that. And you can have some boundaries. If it is a substantial deviation, and that is a staff decision, whether we believe it is substantial or not, and we always err on, if there's any chance of it being considered substantial, it's going to come back to the commission. And when it comes back to the commission, it has to go through the process all over again from the start. We treat any change or amendment to the development agreement as if it's a brand new development agreement. So it would go through the planning commission and it would come here for your 2 public meetings. And so there is a lot of input, but usually the reasons why we have development agreements to nail things down, it's to make sure that they don't deviate from their site plan. Maybe they don't deviate from their architectural design. Maybe the elevations are really, really important, what it's going to look like. And you don't want that to change. And you can nail all that down, that development agreement. But that's not only for the city's protection, that's for their protection too, because more than likely the development agreement is going to say that we're going to apply the law of the code in place at the time when the development agreement is approved all the way through the process. So if we change our code 3 years into their phased out project, they don't have to worry about all the changes that you want to make, that you're going to make in the future. They're going to be bound by whatever was in the code when they originally got their plan. So there's some set-offs like that, but that's why that document is vetted. When we draft them, they don't come on the first go around. 10, 15, 20 different versions of the development agreement as we go through the process. We review it, the developer's attorney reviews it. It may come to you in a draft format. There's, we can do that, but I just want to make sure that you understand that a PD and a development agreement are 2 different things. We could have a development agreement on a single family or a single commercial project that we want to make sure that certain things happen. And the developer wants to agree to them. It doesn't necessarily have to be a PD. So when it is a PD, we'll always want a development agreement. But there are situations where you have a development agreement where you don't have a PD. So anyhow, I'm sorry to bore you with all that, but what my real concerns are let's not go down this path by thinking that I'm going to create this list of my wants for the city and the developer is going to have to do them. No. It is not that easy. There has to be some correlation between your want and what they're building. Okay.
Thank you for that, Tom. Then how come the Schooner project included a city park? Or not a park per se, but behind the garage, there is a park. And that was negotiated.
Yeah, so that was probably part of their development that they wanted that.
Right.
They wanted to provide that. I don't remember us ever asking for that.
No. If I remember correctly, I think it's just open space. They wanted it to be a park and give it to the city. We didn't go down that route.
Right.
It's been a while since I've reviewed that, so I can't exactly remember, but I know.
I know the
what
city
area you're
didn't own
talking
it, but it
about.
was on the east side of the.
I believe
parking
they're using
garage.
it for drainage, or they were talking about using it for drainage. It might be just stormwater. It's been a while since I've looked at that, so I wouldn't want to tell you one thing or the other.
That's one of the things that we tend to shy away from. Developers would love to take taxable value property off the record so that they're not paying the taxes on it. And that you now have a beautiful park, but who's going to pay for that? Now you've taken on the responsibility, the maintenance for the rest of the city's life. So developers would love to give you parks because they don't have to pay for them. So that may have been one of the reasons in the very beginning that, oh, we want to give you this. Well, no, if you want that to be there, you can have it there, but you maintain it and you pay taxes on
I
it.
do think that was what happened. They wanted to give it and the city said no. If they maintained it, and then the conversation was, well, if they maintained it, then it would be for their private use and the city no one would be able to use it. You know, but that was if I recall, the conversation when
That
it was
sounds
at the
about
planning
right.
commission
That makes
stage.
sense.
We don't give up stuff. You know, we don't get anything out of this. Our goal is to do with the best project for the benefit of not only the developer, but the city. That's what our goal is, to get the best thing that we can for the city when we negotiate these agreements. It's sad that it's gotten to the point in the city of Madeira Beach that every time we negotiate a development agreement, it looks like, you know, we're doing it because the developer wanted it. Well, no.
Then why were we having meetings about what we suggest is basically a wish list that we would want the city staff to negotiate on a PD? We had several meetings on that.
I remember the meetings with former Commissioner Hudson talking about those types of things. And it was his suggestion that a list be created. And I think that he came forward with a couple of things. And I said, we would look at that. We would pursue it. But it wouldn't be an illegal exaction. It would have to be something connected directly to the project itself. But if those are important things, whatever is on the list, we'll take a look at those. If it's required under the law and they're going to pay for it, you know, then that may be something that, you know, would not be considered an illegal exaction. But there has to be a direct connection. But there can always be a list and we can always look at it. But we can't tell them, you know, you're going to build a community theater because we allowed you to build a single family home.
So the list basically has to be a requirement of what's required if you're going to be building that property anyway. Whether
I believe it was like increased landscape, solar panels, EV charging stations, those things on the property.
right, but none of those are required.
They're not required, but it was something like that. I would have to look at the notes that we saved for those meetings.
Yeah, and I've seen stuff like, more, wider sidewalks, new sidewalks. If there's a bus stop, they negotiate in putting a bus shelter there, but it's always specific and centric around the project, like Trask was saying. So things like that.
Well, thank you for your advisement.
Any other commissioner comments? City manager report.
Commissioner Hudson.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please come up.
Dave Hudson, 15308 Harbor Drive. Okay, the things on the list were like solar panels, pervious pavers for walkways. Because a lot of the places use an awful lot of the permeable space. Water or beach access through the property. Maybe you try to talk the place into, I've been in places in Hawaii where you walk through the lobby to get to the beach and they put shops and things in there. Maybe that's an option. Vehicle charging stations, reduced rent retail space for the types of business that the city might want. I think one of the things we've done with like the Cambria, we made Linda was always big on first floor retail space. Well, it didn't work in the Cambria. They've got the space for it, but they're not using it for retail. And I don't think they have parking spaces to support that. So maybe if we want a Chinese restaurant, or we want a barber shop, or we want something like that for residents, that we try to get help get the services that the city needs into those places. I don't know if that fits or not, from what Mr. Trask has said. Pavilion or shade coverages on sidewalks. Since things are getting hotter, is that something that the city would like to do? Maybe we cover half of the sidewalks in the city or something for people that walk. Stormwater improvements. Now that one, I think it could still work, even if it isn't right at that property. You're putting enough stuff through the system, possibly that you need something done from that place to the outflow. Funds for the city to provide the traffic study for the project, because instead of the developer, because most of the developers go through and they say the road can handle 200% more than what currently goes through. So this makes no difference whatsoever. So nobody could come back and say, yeah, but parking across the street, and that's going to make an impact on something like Gulf Boulevard. So if the city does it, the developer pays the city, and the city does that study, then we have a study that's the same every time we have a PD. And yeah, that was pretty much it, because the other ones would go against what Mr. Trask said. So, and part of it was, I get the feeling these negotiations, this developer comes in and talks to you guys weekly, monthly, or something like that. That puts a lot of pressure on you to support or to resist that, them saying what they would like and how it doesn't affect anything and things like that. If you have taken it to a bigger group, you can, it gives you a little bit of room to say, the board said, we're not going to do that. Or so it might be something where you can help the planning department in being the bad guy and saying, no, first floor retail isn't a big enough, ask for the city, because in the end results, you're the one that's going to gain more rent by having retail space on the first floor than if you put it on the second floor or wherever else that they would have wanted to put it. So it's getting it early, because right now you have no way of saying that isn't really what the city planned, or that's what we're hearing from people. So maybe you can help them, and the citizens will hear about the development earlier, and you'll start to get some buy-in earlier and make it easier on everyone.
Well, that was my intent. And not only do you have the 5 here, but you have, the city attorney as well to be able to comment on any items that the staff might be considering. You have the city manager, you have multiple sounding boards. So I don't know. I'd personally like to see the board at least be, I mean, we don't have that many of them. So to at least hear what's going on with anything, and maybe provide some comment that's going to be public, that the public can see if and then, and again, announce more public meetings, but it's one more source to get the word out and at least get the discussion on. So I don't know.
So it sounds like you would like to look at the PD section and development agreement. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Would say,
I mean, maybe I'm out of line. But this is just from comments that I've heard from residents, and maybe, I misunderstood some of what we can do, but I don't see it as a bad thing to bring it up early in discussions. If a developer's putting money into a PD, it's going to be in his favor too, the more discussion, the earlier, the better. I don't know, just my thoughts.
okay.
Any other questions? City manager report.
Thank you, Mayor, and try to go through this quickly. June, our transition month, as we really focus on a lot of reminder, in addition to the daily operations, a lot more reminders as we do get into the warmer part of the year. Just reminding folks to stay hydrated, you exercise safety while boating, while swimming, look out for riptides. It's the start of hurricane season. Sea turtle nesting season continues. So we focus on a lot of reminders, continue to remind mainly visitors when visiting the sand to leave no trace, fill in the holes, etc. Help keep our beaches clean. So that's really a lot of the messages through the report in June, including as we start to, and there was more this morning, which interestingly, there was none last night about 10:30, but quite a bit of seaweed that washed up overnight, and particularly on the south side of some of the groins, depending how the tide came in and went out. But again, just reminding that seaweed is a natural occurrence. It tends to be this time of year, and we get calls for people who you need to go out and remove the seaweed. Well, if it's on the wet part or the water side of the mean high water line, we do not remove it. It stays there. It serves as a valid ecosystem. So, and again, reminding folks, as I said already, about the hurricane season, and make sure that you're prepared, come in if you don't already, to obtain your barrier island reentry pass. We also reminded folk, in addition to planning for everything that I just stated, just to be mindful, just like this evening, of thunderstorms that pop up, and sometimes as quickly as they pop up, they vanish just as quickly. But we did remind folks, we do have the website where anybody can use our system that we have to look up whether there's any imminent storms that are coming, lightning. We do have an alarm out here at the park that does sound if lightning gets very close. And also reminding folks to use the county's app, the Ready Pinellas, for any types of emergencies, particularly, weather related, but it's really available for any emergency, but mainly, designed obviously for tropical storms and hurricanes, and for anybody. I got a message the other day that it's now available in Spanish. So you can go on, press a button on the app, and translates it to Spanish, and it's quite good. So in case anybody out there would like to read it in Espanol. So things that the counties continues to do, again, reminding everybody about sea turtle nesting. Also, our ongoing to look at our city vision and mission statements, as we've discussed, and we'll have more discussions at the August workshop. as to where we're heading to keep the conversation and really to start to have likely a public meeting either in September, probably in October, once we begin the new fiscal year, to start to get some feedback from folks. And then also we will likely be issuing an RFP for a firm to assist once we get to certain steps. But we will likely have that conversation in October at a workshop as to where we are and what that's, when we get to that step, that we would look to either utilize, possibly utilize an outside firm. Doesn't mean that that's what we're going to do. Reminding folks of our budget meetings like the one today. And there were a few people who attended and a couple that spoke. So we encourage people to, attend our meetings and again, reminding folks of that, our trash and our recycling, again, similar reminders of when the collections are and to place your cans back away from the curbside by sunset of after the trash and recycling collection days. In parking and going through some of the individual departments, again, reminding of resident parking passes and where, what visitors, just to remind folks of when visitors come here, how that process works. And obviously you have to pay to park in any of the city parking lots, and a reminder that there are lots out there that are not city owned. And also reminding folks about using either the kiosk or you can use the Park Mobile app to pay for visitor parking. That's the listing of upcoming events and meetings. Also reminding folks that we do have a library, and even though it's not a city department, I think a lot of people, it's good to remind them of the programs, the activities. There's a lot of different apps you can, in addition to checking out books or anything, you can download a lot of electronic materials, books, etc. They also offer notary services for anybody needing that notary service, and even I included the chart as to the amount of materials that you can check out and the due dates for those, because people still go in there and check out books, DVDs, video, etc. So those are, and also reminding folks that you can get a library card. Certainly if you live within our city, just please go and get a library card. It's free, doesn't cost anything. And and reminders also how to reach the city, our mobile app. Our building department, again, community development continued, obviously processing, variety of different permits and other even developments that are listed in the report. You can see some of those updates, particularly some of the larger ones that's actually nearing completion. The townhomes just north of where we are off of 153rd and 54th, and just other projects that are ongoing, the condo building on 150th, other projects that just haven't had much movement are also listed on there, such as you enter the city from on the Tom Stewart Causeway. We have not heard anything or much of a movement in that project down from or pretty close to our city marina. So we continue just to watch. We have not heard from the owner of that property. The last was that they were still looking to sell, but we haven't heard anything from them recently. Again, a listing of all the different types of permits and some of the data and activity that was performed throughout the month. Over 2 million in valuation of permit work completed. Our parking revenue, we actually had the largest parking collections in June that we have ever had, over 360,000 from just in parking revenue and 57,000 plus in parking fines. So well over approximately about 420,000 in revenue, which is the most, again, for a single month. And our garage fund is up to just under 760,000 by the end of the calendar year, with this through June 30th. But the last 4 months of the year, we're going to be pretty close to about 950,000 available for the parking garage. Of course, little ebb and flows. July still is a large parking month. Last year, that was our largest revenue month. But this year, weather has been obviously warmer than I think expected. So we do get a lot more people coming out to the beach. But then we start to have some of our showers that we typically start in June, just didn't happen in June. Our fire department also reminds folks of rip currents and obviously other safety matters, but mainly how to stay safe in the water for everybody that visits the water. And our marina reporting on how we had the boating vessel safety checks that occurred back at the end of, actually this is at the end of May, but and the revenue showing really collections are pretty steady. We're not seeing any significant fluctuations in fuel or other store sales. And again, when the weather's less storms, less water impacts, then of course we tend to get more people will go out on their boat a little bit more than normal. And Public Works provided an update on our projects. Really the biggest movement is on Gulf Lane, where our contractor did start with installing the conduit that will eventually be utilized to underground the utilities on Gulf Lane from 136th all the way down to 130th on Gulf Lane. And some really no other significant updates other than which is not listed on here, but the Florida Department of Transportation did be, well, it wasn't out there today, but as of yesterday, they had not started, but they're apparently either this week or next week to begin the new crosswalk installation at 134th or just north of 134th. And again, just reminders from Public Works regarding our collection days for trash, recycling. Yard waste is every Wednesday. Again, if folks do leave additional trash next to a can, our staff will collect it, remove it. And also reminding folks to help keep our stormwater drains clean, prevent, contain your yard debris. Do not pour any ash or any other hazardous or other materials into the storm drains. Just reminding everybody of a lot of what we're working on every day to, again, keep our city as clean and as pristine as we can. And that includes everything from the sand to our rights of way to obviously the trash and refuse collection, the 2 days of the week that our staff goes out and collects that. Be happy to answer any questions or comments. And if none, again, we do on behalf of all the staff, we very much appreciate the continued support. We are here obviously to continue to provide the best possible city services, regardless of who are obviously our residents, businesses, and visitors. We provide to all of them equally. That is our goal, and to be as efficient and effective and simply ensure that we continue to be a great city to live, learn, work, and play. And we want everybody to enjoy our 2 miles long and a smile wide of our slice of paradise that I'm thinking we cannot say enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments?
Oh, I'm sorry to Commissioner, we have one more. Mr. Trask wanted to bring up just one quick thing as part of my update, and then.
Thank you. So on July 17th, I sent everyone an email. I've received a phone call from the attorney representing the city in the case of Madeira Beach versus Overture Realty. He's received a settlement offer in the case, and he's requesting a shade meeting pursuant to Florida Statute 286.011. I'd like to set the shade meeting, as I mentioned in the email 2 weeks ago or a week ago, for August 9th at 5 p.m. That would be before your meeting. So it's my belief that the meeting will take less than an hour. I think probably 30 to 45 minutes. But pursuant to that state statute, I'm required by law to ask for the meeting at a public meeting, and that's what I'm doing. And then we'll properly notice the shade meeting for August 9th at 5 p.m. if that is acceptable for the commission. And I know that there are some members here that have probably not been through a shade meeting before, and I will explain that when the meeting starts. Unless you have questions before, then I'd be happy to answer them for you. But August 9th at 5 PM, is that acceptable to the commission? Thank you.
Will you send a calendar invite for that or should we enter it ourselves?
You're going to get a notice from the city clerk's office. It's going to look like one of your regular agendas and it will specifically set forth the date and the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have something I'd like to say, and at the end, I'd like to give an update on the committees that I am on outside of this committee. I wake up every day with an open mind and come to these meetings with an open mind and a professional respect for all of you, my fellow commissioners, vice mayor, and mayor. At the end of our last meeting, a comment was made to the residents of Madeira Beach in regard to my comment about a very select few bullies. What is the exact meaning of a bully? By definition, it is to treat someone in a cruel, insulting, threatening, or aggressive fashion to cause someone to do something by means of force or coercion. Under the Florida Sunshine Law, we are not allowed to discuss anything outside of these meetings. My statements and conversation here are so that we can be aware of each other's thoughts on issues. I spoke at our last meeting in reference to emails we have received collectively by a select few residents that have specifically come here and spoken to us in what is considered, in my opinion, and by definition, a bully manner. I did not call all residents as bullies. I spoke of a very small number that were here on the dais. Know that here on the dais, you know, who they are. It is those and only those residents I spoke of, and I made that clear. Respectful banter or discussion is good. I would and do love residents to come in to discuss and tell us what they want, what their opinions are, but to have someone come in here and tell us, threaten us, is bullying. This commission and you, Mayor, should not allow or feed this behavior. Additionally, over the last several months, our city manager, our city attorney, and at times our staff have been disrespected by this very commission via email and here on the dais. They have been allowed to be disrespected by the residents here from the podium with no defense from this commission. Not liking something that our staff or city manager does is going to happen. Asking for a change or requesting a change is good. Being hateful or being threatening is unacceptable. We are a strong city manager government. Our city manager should be respected and allowed to do his job. It is not the responsibility nor the right of anyone sitting on this commission to direct our city manager independently what to do or to direct any other city staff as what to do. We are 5. Each person sitting here has 1 vote. I thought it important to share that is how I feel. So I would also like to tell you that I was appointed to serve on the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. Our first meeting was scheduled for June and they postponed it because they did not have a quorum. So we do have the next meeting scheduled for August 14th. It looks like we are going to have a quorum. So I am looking forward to telling you what all happens in our workshop in August. I also applied and was appointed to the Pinellas County Charter Review Committee, which I'm very excited to be a part of that. And that first meeting will be held on August 16th. And after that meeting, I will enjoy coming and telling you information about that. Thank you for listening to me and allowing me to speak my mind.
Any other comments? Time is 21:48 and this commission workshop is adjourned.